16 to 1, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning.
Hello.
Hi.
How we doing?
Hey, we're great.
We got a guest.
We do. We have a guest on the pod.
Our first guest, one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
Most
Would
days.
you like to introduce yourself?
I will introduce myself. Sure.
Great.
I mean, if you lead me in as one of your favorite people, absolutely.
There's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. My name is Risha Allen, and I am just happy that I am someone's favorite person. Yeah.
You're like TikTok's favorite teacher right now.
I mean, I feel like I'm TikTok's music teacher right now. I am a trained English language arts high school teacher, national board certified, but I made a career switch and I'm on TikTok as a music teacher. It's just the world is new. It's awesome.
And you've been in Kentucky and Ohio.
Yep.
And
I taught in Kentucky, Ohio. Now I'm in North Dakota. I've been teaching for 15 years.
Is it really?
15 years.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
And starting over this year. So 15 years for what? What was the rest of that?
For what?
What even
Just to,
was I
to
doing?
become a music teacher, which I love.
I do too. It was a wild move, but here I am. Yeah, I feel like I've lived a few lives. I'm like a cat with 9 lives, and like I'm on life 4 right now.
Okay. Well, you're like not even halfway. So
No, not
at
even.
this rate, you've got like 60 more years of teaching.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How many years of teaching do you need to retire in North Dakota? Like 100 or?
No, I think 65.
you
No, we
go.
gotta be 65.
There we go.
You only
More or
need to
less
be
the
in the
same.
classroom for 65 years, so I'll die there.
You need to be dead,
I will.
and then
Yes,
And then your
that's
kids
when
can
you
have
can collect your pension.
1% of your
Yes.
retirement.
absolutely. That's exactly how it's going down.
So we have Risha with us because our topic this week is banned books, which is probably one of the first topics that we even came up with this podcast. And immediately, as soon as we picked it, I was like, I've got a guest. We just have to figure out how to have a guest. So Chelsea worked it out. It's working, best we can tell.
Go Chelsea.
Maybe. But
yeah, I do. Let's just like real quick a note for listeners: if the audio quality is different or things sound a little weird this week, bear with us because this is the first time we've used this recording software and setup. We're using Zencaster to remotely record, so don't leave us angry reviews. We're just trying to figure it out. But yeah, this is our first.
Not about this.
We're very lucky to have you as our first guest. So
We are.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for the honor of having me.
So, do we just want to jump in with some examples of banned books and talk about
you
what it
just
is?
Straight to it.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like at the end we'll probably have a lot of chat. I mean, we can start with more chat if we like.
No, I hate chatting.
Okay,
don't wanna
I have
talk
one
to
question
you
for.
ever.
I have a question for Risha. So shut up, Chelsea.
Yes,
Risha,
ma'am.
are there snow days in North Dakota?
Are there snow days?
Yeah, like in Ohio. You know how we had snow
No.
days.
No.
Okay, all right.
No.
That's sad.
They'll cancel recess.
Not school.
Wow.
No, they won't cancel school. They won't even do a delay. Like we've been
Like-
driving on solid ice. It was negative 50 for about 3 weeks.
Sheesh. So
and
they're like,
we-
snow day, a day where it
Yeah,
snows.
no.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
The only time we would get a snow day is if the wind chills are super dangerous, like, around negative 50, but like super blowing, like right in your face and blowing snow, like can't see blizzard.
We like talk about snow and they cancel school.
Yeah, I was gonna say, send a little
Yeah.
snow this way because we believe in snow days
Yeah.
here in
Yeah,
America's heartland.
Also believe in snow days, and it was really hard to get used to. Like, you mean I gotta change shoes once I get to work? Like, you gotta wear
Right.
sturdy shoes just to get there?
Sturdy. I just feel like
Yeah.
North Dakota, like those people are just like that's the word sturdy. Like they're just
Sturdy.
more
Yeah.
like sturdy than the rest of us.
They are. They're hardy. They're sturdy.
Hardy, that's maybe it.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking like corn fed, yeah.
For sure.
But okay, well,
you gotta survive. This is this is death weather, truly. Like, matter of fact, before we go on, like, I didn't realize like that humidity played a role in what the weather actually feels like outside when it's cold. I mean, I know all about as you do, humidity when it's hot. And so the principal got on and made an announcement Thursday of last week. He was like, hey, just want to remind you guys that you can get frostbite within just a couple of minutes out there. So make sure you put on your gloves and hats, kids. And I was like, what's the temp? And it was negative 30, but the humidity was like in the 60s. I did not have a hat, and nor did I wear gloves that day. And so then I'm like, frostbite, you say. I am not even kidding. The walk from school to my car hurt so badly that I was like, the heck is going on? Like, I've lived here for a long enough time to know that I could jet to my car, even if it's negative whatever.
Sure.
Like, my fingers froze, everything. It was awful. Anyway, frostbite. So they'll make announcements about frostbite. But
what? Okay. I want to know more about how the humidity does this, but it's okay.
Same. Meteorologist, second guess.
As I was about to ask you, I was like, let's just keep it to TikTok.
No. I will give it hell trying to figure it out, but no clue.
All right. Well, I'm sorry about your lack of snow days.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I kind of figured that was over for you, but I'm still sad.
Yeah.
That's like the one thing, well, like one of two things that teaching really offers you. Like for me.
Yeah. Summer and snow days.
Yeah. So so now you have summer.
I have summer, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Gonna hold on to summer for dear life.
That's it. You better hope they don't take it.
If they take summer. No, North Dakotans, they worship summer. So nobody's messing with summer up here.
Because they don't see daylight. It's like Alaska.
They don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They don't. You can see the northern lights from here. It's that far north. No, I didn't get to see them because the cloud cover, particularly where I live, but I mean, 20 miles up the road, you can see we're northeast. Yeah. These people love summer.
I feel like when we drove through North Dakota, it was flat and there were a lot of boats. I was not expecting boats.
All the boats, all the lakes. These are lake people, but they drive an hour.
They just go. That's what I'm saying. There's just nothing in between. So we're seeing all these boats on the interstate. Just
where are they going?
Yeah, that was my thing. I'm like, do they know something I don't?
Desert.
What's the secret?
Here.
Tell me. Why does everybody but us have a boat?
Oh, because they can see the mirage.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I'm like,
right?
They're really going through it out here.
Yeah.
They're going to put that boat anywhere.
There's so many lakes.
Really?
They're not people. I don't know. There's only a few towns here that are actually lake towns. Otherwise, people just commute. And there's so little here and so few people here that a 2-hour commute for recreation is no big deal. And I'm like, are y'all kidding me?
Yeah.
You're going to tow that boat for an hour and a half?
The speed limit is also 80.
It is. It's nice.
So that, that makes it an hour and a half or something. Right?
It really does.
Driving out there.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. I was just when we drove through there, I was like, where are they going with boats? Because I've not seen any water.
They kept putting up the billboards about registering your boat or whatever, or getting it inspected or something. And I was like, what water? There's none.
Right. But why? Why would you get a boat inspected?
I know.
There's no water.
And people with kayaks, I was like, okay. I was and I was anticipating, I'm like, are the sand dunes closer than I know? I don't know a lot about North Dakota, but I haven't learned that it's a water plant,
Right. No, I hadn't either. I mean, you hear Minnesota land the lakes or whatever. And North Dakota is geographically very similar, being right there. So, I mean, it's still the same concept. There's a whole bunch of lakes that pop up everywhere. There's a bunch of lakes. It's actually one of the biggest lakes in America is here. There's more shoreline than California. Lake Sakakawea.
One more time.
Huge. Lake Sakakawea.
Can you spell that?
I cannot. And I will.
And I won't.
I am pretty sure I would mess it up, even though I think it's pretty phonetically sound. However, as I said that, I tried to spell it in my head and realized that was egregiously false.
Okay. Yeah. Well, when we bring our boat north, we're taking it straight to North Dakota. Yeah, I really did wonder about that, so I'm glad I got to ask you. All right.
Yeah.
So back to banned books.
Mystery solved. Yeah.
Things I learned this week.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about this issue, and then we'll get into Risha, why you know so much about it, why you have a very special relationship with getting yelled at about books.
I am very fortunate to know about it.
Yeah. Okay. So banned books are kind of in the news right now because, and we didn't really plan it this way. It just so happens that the U.S. is mad at teachers. Go figure.
Again?
This is again. How many times a day do we get mad at teachers in the U.S.? But still, always, perpetually. But this has been coming up because there's been a lot of chatter. This happens in a political context for the most part, but there's been a lot of chatter about, let's just say, people are wanting to inject themselves into parts of the educational process that they might not always want, it might not always be the
that
place
they
for
don't
them.
belong in. Let's
Yeah,
say
well,
the
yeah, I'm
truth.
trying to be delicate, but there's
Right.
really no reason to be delicate, so I don't know why I'm trying to be delicate. But yeah, basically, it's like parents are trying to tell teachers what to teach kids is what's going on. But
Yes.
this is coming up because of a lot of issues around race and gender in this country. We've talked a lot about some of those issues on other episodes of this pod, but suffice it to say, this new era of parents watching over what is being taught in schools is presenting all kinds of interesting problems for teachers who are now having to try to address it and also fight political battles and also just keep a normal classroom functioning. It's a lot to ask of our teachers, and yet here we are again dealing with this. So, just as a bit of background, the banned books that you might think of are not necessarily the ones that actually end up getting banned. So we've banned everything from the Decameron and Canterbury Tales, which is a little bit naughty. Candide, also a bit naughty.
I will
We've
fight for
also-
the Canterbury Tales.
Oh, I will
it's
fight for the
hilarious.
Canterbury
It's
Tales.
hilarious. I love the Canterbury
I
Tales.
have
They are
fought for
naughty.
the Canterbury
Yeah,
I was
Tales.
gonna
well.
say, I think, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Having read a portion of them, I don't think I've read them all, but they are hilarious. But again, I think with any literature, you're going to run into some differences of opinion about what is and isn't appropriate sometimes. But with texts like that, they're probably targeted because they can be a bit bawdy. Uncle Tom's Cabin is on this list of rather famous books that have been banned. These are all books that have been banned in the U.S. at various times in our history. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
What is that?
I'm going to make us read that in a book club once. That's Paulo Freire. That's
I'm busy.
Oh,
that's
Risha, you want in?
it's interesting.
I'll read it.
And now that I know that it's been banned in the U.S., I'm neither. I mean, I don't know. I'm not surprised by that, but it makes me want to read it even more. So
Okay.
maybe you can come back and join us for our book club episode on that.
Yeah, I'll read it. Anything that's been banned
Yeah. Grapes of
has
Wrath
my interest.
banned, and Howl. I think you know this one.
Is that
Kate,
Ginsberg?
Howl. Yeah.
It's been a minute. Grapes of Wrath is about the turtle, right?
What?
Isn't that the one
I've
about
never
the
read
tortoise?
Grapes
Sorry,
of
what?
Wrath.
Isn't the Grapes of Wrath have the tortoise? Did
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know why I reacted so animatedly when I've never read The Grapes
Oh,
of
okay.
Wrath. But I'm like ready to defend the idea of what I thought it was about.
Oh, okay. Well, I support
So,
you. You can defend it. I'm not.
And then,
I'm
I
pro
realized
turtle.
like I can't. But when you said turtle, I was instantly like, no.
All right, maybe not.
And I don't know.
No,
It could very well be about a turtle.
everything I know about it is about agriculture and farmers and
That's what I
migrants.
thought. I thought it was going to be
Yeah.
akin to Of Mice and Men and Dust Bowl.
It's like, yeah, it's the
stuff.
Dust Bowl, right? Okay, so
Well,
The
what
Dust
we've-
Bowl turtle.
Mice and Men earned the spot on this list pretty frequently as well.
Oh,
yes,
for
also banned.
sure.
very
One of my
frequently.
favorites.
Yes,
I love that one.
frequently banned. Grapes of Wrath. So all of these, and I need to read them, the ones that I haven't read yet, obviously. But all of these banned, a lot of them, especially in the latter half of that list, banned because they are making comments on race relations in this country or elsewhere. That kind of fiction tends to make people uncomfortable, and anything that makes anybody mildly uncomfortable can tend to become a candidate for being banned. So
Absolutely.
there's an organization called PEN America, which does a lot of record keeping and kind of reporting and communicating about censorship and banned books in the US. And they've got some interesting stuff about recent facts and figures here. And there's this quote from their website. It's like, between January and September of 2021, so that's just this last year, 24 legislatures across the United States introduced 54 separate bills intended to restrict teaching and training in K-12 schools, higher education, and state agencies and institutions. The majority of these bills target discussions of race, racism, gender, and American history, banning a series of, quote, prohibited or divisive, end quote, concepts for teachers and trainers operating in K-12 schools, public universities, and workplace settings. These bills appear designed to chill academic and educational discussions and impose government dictates on teaching and learning. In short, they are educational gag orders.
Yeah.
So we talked about why these books get banned a lot, and we'll talk about them more with your experience, Risha, but just a little final glance at who's initiating challenges to these books that are getting taught in schools. There's this breakdown. This was, again, I think this might be from the American Library Association.
I think this is
that's-
ALA.
Yeah, this is the ALA. So this is about who's initiating challenges to schools to get books banned. And it's, according to the ALA, it's 50% of these reported incidents are initiated by parents, 20% by patrons.
What? Is that like community member?
Patrons?
Yeah.
So
Like
patrons
what?
of libraries who
Oh.
aren't parents to students in schools, I would assume.
Oh.
50% parents, 20% patrons, 11% board or admin, 9% political or religious groups, 5% librarians or teachers, 4% elected officials, and 1% students. So the people most
1%.
affected, the people most affected by what is being taught in schools are the people least likely to be challenging what is taught in schools. Go figure. Parents have an outsized impact on this issue. So, boring stuff out of the way. Risha, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with this issue and your backstory and why you know so much about this?
All right. Well, like I said, when I came on the pod, like I don't have much by way of statistical data. So I'm really glad that you prefaced anything that I have to share anecdotally about banned books with some background, because it's a serious problem. And sometimes things happen and we tend to, like, I don't know, get a bit of tunnel vision and think we're the only ones that have turned this apple cart over, and it is definitely
I think
not that
the thing
way.
about CRT as an acronym, critical race theory, is becoming that hot button issue that's kind of distracting from the ongoing issue here right now. So yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah. I am very, very interested in what's happening with just those words.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting thing. People say it all the time, and I'm like, what? It's just a philosophy. There is no curriculum.
Yeah, like
It's
what
just,
is it? That's what I always want to ask
we
people.
don't do it. Like they've banned it here in North Dakota, apparently. Like the legislature here
Really
banned CRT from schools. And I'm like, okay, I get it that is, what your constituents want to see, but like that's like banning, I don't know, things that don't exist.
Yeah.
I think
like you can banning like philosophical
that's what's happening
ideas.
a lot. I have a philosophy background, and I can confidently say that even in grad school, the number of things that I read that might have been considered sort of explicitly critical race theory, it was a very small number of things. But what we're seeing happen as a result of legislation like that is that, like, Toni Morrison is getting banned. Any writing vaguely adjacent to race.
Toni Morrison is a target before CRT is a.
She's a target already. But you're right. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things that can just quietly go by the wayside now, because all you have to do is attach an inflammatory label to it, and boom, it's gone. I mean, it's worrisome.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of fear. So, whenever I was a teacher, I saw fear grow legs and come to school every day. It was nuts. So I graduated college in 2005, started teaching immediately. My passion was reading. So I'm from southeastern Kentucky, where, I don't know if you know this, we don't have the best track record with literacy.
We got a lot of lakes.
Not in North Dakota. Southeastern Kentucky, we got lakes there too. But like the New York Times put out an article a handful of years ago, probably like 2016, 2017 or something, that named 10 of the hardest places to live in America. And 6 of the 10 are in southeastern Kentucky. I'm pretty sure 6
Really?
of them. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're looking at like the most economically difficult places to live, you're going to run into literacy problems. And so my passion very quickly as a teacher, not before I started teaching, but once I got there, and I was like, oh, these kids can't read.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that, because I was always a good reader.
I was going to say, you were raised in a house that, yes.
I was also raised in a house where, like, we were conservative, very strict in our religious practices. I didn't even say the F word, fart. I wasn't allowed to say that word.
How dare you?
Hey, I wasn't either. I was not either. We were not allowed to say that word.
Podcast, so we're going to have to bleep fart now.
Bleep out that F word. I'm sorry to get so racy here already, but I was not raised with any type of fear of the things I wasn't allowed to do or wasn't interested in. I could read about them all day long without ever, in my household, nobody was ever offended by anything. We were allowed to read, and my mom was an avid reader, and my dad was a crazy man, but he was an avid reader. Like, so I didn't realize that I was different than anyone in my area. So here I go into teaching in southeastern Kentucky, and I really feel taken aback because these kids just can't read. And what I mean by can't read is their fluency would be decent, so they could read a sentence and sound like they could read. So to their parents or to anybody else, maybe at church, they're reading the Bible, they're reading devotions out to each other. It sounds like they can read.
Yeah.
What teachers find out really quickly is if they can comprehend anything that they're reading. And so what I was finding is we would read a couple of sentences or a paragraph, and they literally did not know
what was happening,
what we just read. And this is not just the poor kids. I mean, this is just like, everybody in Southeastern Kentucky is probably considered poor to the rest of the world. But I mean, like, to those of us that are from there, there's a class system, and it's not just the dirt poor kids from the holler that can't read. It's also the kids with clear college intent that can't read. And so my passion as a teacher very quickly formed into helping these kids read like I was taught to read, which is the way you become a reader is you read books.
All of them.
I can't. You just read books. Yeah. You consume words, and that's how you become a better reader. So that became my focus. And for the first few years of my career, I was a champion in the school districts I was in. They loved me. They loved my zest. They loved I'm zesty.
Your pizzazz.
I got a lot of pizzazz. So anyway, my professional drive met my zest for life and my, go-getter personality. And so the school districts really, really appreciated what I had to offer, because the kids, I have always been able to connect with my students. And so if you can build relationships with kids, connect with kids, and then like you have the energy to be entertainment for them, you entertain them for free every day. And then you also happen to have this like passion that you bring in and smack them upside the head with your love for books. And suddenly they want to read. It's this thing. So I guess that once it grew into this thing that got a lot of attention in the community, like those things can't stay hidden for too long. Before you know it, you're doing something cool that gets in the newspaper. Before you know it, 5 or 6 parents love you and start like following you on social media. And, I don't know. It's just.
So early on, were those books, when you started realizing like their reading level, were those like canon pieces, or were you automatically jumping into young adult lit? Like,
oh no, I was not automatically jumping into young adult. Actually, as a matter of fact, I didn't really know much about young adult lit because I never read it.
Sure.
Being a reader growing up, I read what my mom read, and young adults, her young adults, like Nancy Drew stuff, I wasn't interested in. And that's the only young adult that I ever
I was
knew
the same
about.
way. I did not start reading young adult until I met Kate, really. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much cool stuff out there. Why wasn't I reading this? Right. No, I was the same way as a kid. I was like, my mom.
Yeah, like my mom was reading like
Nancy
what,
Drew.
Laura Ingalls Wilder, like that kind of thing.
Oh man.
I don't know. We go with what we know. And I didn't know anything about young adult literature at that time. I won't say that I was particularly faithful to canon. I was so new. I was so young. I didn't know much about the canon. And I didn't pay attention to the canon when I was in high school. I was not any type of school kid. I read my own stuff.
Yeah, I guess what I meant by canon was more just like you taught what your school had copies of. You know what I mean? Like the standard. Sure. I don't know. You know what I mean, though. Like not like yeah.
Well, yeah. I will just say I taught what I was supposed to teach without any particular reverence to it. But very early into my career, I realized that there were some fundamental problems with those things as the internet, as access to all those things is becoming touch of a finger. Suddenly the integrity of the reading process is questionable. Kids don't have to do their own quiz. It used to just be cheating. Like, here, can I copy off your quiz? Suddenly it's finding the answers online and stuff. So there started to become some issues with some of the canonical works that were required anyway, because the poor readers are street smart and get good grades, but still not be able to read anything. And so young adult literature, whenever I found young adult literature, I was like, whoa, not only is this high interest, easy to read because it's good and it reads like conversation. It's also not so common that it's all over the internet where the kids can find the answers to everything. They actually have to do some of the heavy lifting on their own if they're going to participate in conversation. So I was really thankful when the young adult literature stuff came in, but no, I didn't really lead with that. And I don't even remember how I got into young adult literature. How did I find that? Or did my students present it to me?
I was going to say, do you remember what it was?
I started teaching at this particular school district, and I'm on year 2 at the time. So my second year of teaching, I was at this district and I was with them for 4 years. And you know how it is around year 3, you've got, your experience under you and you you know enough just to get yourself in trouble,
Yeah.
on year 3. And so I felt good. I felt like I was walking in that year knowing what I was doing. And I kind of I just finished the writing project at Eastern Kentucky University. So I kind of like upped the ante on what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was literature circles. I had read about them and done a research project through the writing project on cooperative learning. And so I started literature circles, but I didn't have any money. And so I would go to Half Price Books in Lexington and find their dollar books. And if there were enough dollar books that I could get 6 of them, I would buy 6 of the dollar books. So like
Love Half Price
that
books.
was the only like scrutiny that I put into the literature that I brought in. I mean, of course, if there was something like illicit on the cover,
there have to be 6 of you and you can't be more than $1. Okay.
Right. Times were hard.
And you leave with like 3 cassette tapes and like,
right. So we got a boombox and you can play the audio of this.
It's just an old Beastie Boys. That's all you get, kids. Sorry.
This is all you get. So I started that way. So there really was not any type of agenda like, oh, I'm going to introduce them to X, Y, and Z. It was really like, I want them to have access to books. I want them to be able to read in groups. I want them to choose what books they want to read. And I don't have any money. Like I'm broke as a joke. So I'm going to go to Half Price Books and spend $50 total and bring back a bunch of books and hope the kids read them. That's how this started. Another aspect of being from the poorest part of America is that, it feels good when people bring stuff in that you get to use.
It's exciting.
No questions asked. It's like Christmas. So I'll never forget the day that I brought in just a bunch of books and just dumped them on the floor. And they were like, for us? Like it was exciting. And so like they had this interaction with books that I think transcended school.
Well, it's an investment. They know they're being invested in.
Absolutely. You mean my teacher went out and bought books that she hopes that we will like and that we will read and that kind of stuff. So that's how it grew. I wanted kids to feel some ownership in my class. I wanted them to get excited and share in some of my energy about reading. And I wanted them to get better. So that was it. It quickly became politicized and I was raked through the coals in the media for years. But it was pure. The intentions were absolutely pure. There was no agenda whatsoever. Now, I was very naive because I had no clue that kids would not be allowed to read a book that had bad words in it.
Is that what the part of the issue was? It was like, was it?
Well, I mean,
so like, what did people object to when you were carrying on these reading circles and stuff? What was the nature of the hubbub?
So there were many objections. I think the first objection was to me personally.
Really?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. Not many people hate my guts. I don't know what it is, and I've learned this about myself, but most people I can jive with, but the people that don't like me do so vehemently. And there's only like 3 of them on the planet, I think. So I think the first real objection was to me.
Like a personality.
Other parents loved me. Yeah. Maybe their kids liked me too much. There could definitely have been a jealousy thing because the kids loved me. They love me, love me, love me. I could get them to read anything just by suggesting that they read. I mean, because that's what people don't understand when you build relationships with kids. Like you're building a relationship with these kids. You start to be like somebody very important in their lives. And for some people, like they can become upset by that. I mean, I've seen people say stuff to me on my TikTok singing, cute songs with kids. Like, oh, teachers think they can be the parents. Well, teachers just love kids. And some parents, I guess, if you are bothered by how much your child enjoys being around their teacher, then you can, I don't know. I don't want to say that's what it was, but I feel like that's what it was. So now that's not to say that there weren't things that are, commonly banned in these books. There were curse words.
So they probably just started with looking for something. And then
yes. Well, the question was, what is she doing?
That makes
all of these kids are reading. And I'm telling you,
we know there's something fishy because kids don't like to read. So this lady,
like, as silly as that sounds,
I know
exactly what it was. It was like, what kind of witchcraft is she doing up there to make them take their cell phones down? And so then they start, combing through, looking for something because maybe that is what upset them. I've been trying to get my kid to read for this many years, and now they won't stop reading.
How dare they?
So So here's kind of the gist of what happened. After that first year bringing all the books in, the kids loved it, but we were on block schedule, so they didn't have me the next semester, and they were devastated. We want to keep reading books with you. We want to keep doing literature circles. And let me just stop to say, I firmly believed and still believe that the teacher needs to get the heck out of the discussion. The teacher needs to get the kids comfortable enough to talk in literature circles, not in teaching. I mean, just in literature circles. I feel like when there's an intimate group of kids reading a book, when at all possible, equip the kids to own the situation and teachers back out and just kind of listen in and let the kids lead in those types of situations. And so they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And one thing that I just want to say before we go on is all of the books were choice. They had to read something, but they could bring their own things in. I had kids that would bring in the Bible, the kids that would bring in their devotional reading for their churches, whatever. It didn't matter. They just had to read. And if their group was reading a book that 2 kids in the group didn't want to read, they could read whatever. The goal was that everybody would read the same book so they could talk about it. But the rule was that if you don't want to read this book, if you're offended, if you're bored, whatever, just read something, but you have to make universal connections. Listen to others, chime in universally, tell about your book and find ways to connect it, which is now one of our great Common Core standards, which it wasn't then, but
dang it.
Bring it, right? Like tie these central ideas together. Let's talk about where they formed and let's see how they can, how they can connect and play off each other, even if they're not in the same book. That said, students wanted to start a book club the next semester so that we could keep the literature circles going. That is where young adult literature became prevalent because then they got to choose. So they chose some young adult literature. So the book club from February to May grew from 12 kids to 78 kids just in that school year. And so we started doing mad fundraising, and that's where our name started getting out into the
I would
public.
have just loved to have been a student sitting by watching all that happen. It sounds like it was just it sounds really cool. I'm jealous.
Magical.
I'm jealous. Yeah.
I look back at this era and I think this was truly a unique situation. I don't think it's one that happens a lot.
It's like Dead Poet Society level, right? Like those are the moments that, like, if you've ever dreamed of being a teacher, it's because of what you think are those moments. And you could probably count on one hand how many there are, right? Like truly.
Right. Absolutely.
So you were having this moment.
Not saying that about me, like that Erin, what's her name?
Oh yeah, the writers.
People have compared me to her too, and I'm thinking like at that time, like I'm not comparing myself to anybody. I'm just looking around, going, "What the heck is happening?" These kids are freaking out over books. It was trending before anything was trending ever. It was causing a stir. Kids
and that's the problem.
That's the problem. Kids are walking down the hall with books open, like bumping into each other in lockers because they're reading while they're walking. And I'm going to say this real quick, because if any teachers are listening, I want to tell people how I graded this, because when I look back, this is something that I see as being integral to the buy-in that happened that created this perfect storm of reading that turned into like getting me run out of town. So
everybody take note. This is how you lose this current job that you might really love.
Listen, this was magical and it almost got me killed. So
and now I'm on TikTok.
and listen, I changed my career and everything, but honestly, like,
do it. It's great. I can't recommend it enough.
10 out of 10 stars.
Full throttle, baby.
Yes. Maybe that's like the missing ingredient, because like I'm like jumping into a volcano having no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just like,
zest. They're gonna love this. Meanwhile, the parents downtown are like, well,
right. So all right, so this was my grading rubric, and I think that this was so important. Kids could pass literature circles without reading the first page. They could get a 70% without opening the book. And I know that sounds like, losers get a trophy kind of thing. But what that did was make it a level playing field for the kids that weren't readers, for the kids that were super behind, for the kids that had jobs or kids on their own and whatever. Like they could, if they would participate in the discussion, they could still get a 70% if they filled out their paper. So here was the rubric. There were 30 points that I converted fraction of pages read out of pages in the book. And I would take that percentage of 30 points. And then there was 30 points for filling out your paper. And I followed the Harvey Daniels model, and everybody had a discussion role there was discussion leader and blah, blah, blah. And so then the remaining 40 points was discussion. If you chimed in, and I had like this paper that I filled out, and I would make notes. I was the secretary of what people said, like shorthand notes of what people said. And if my handwriting filled in that box, you got your 40 points. So if kids filled out their papers, and if you were word watcher or something like that, you could literally flip through the book, find random words, define them, talk about what they mean. Like there were ways that kids could pass. So it didn't alienate anybody.
That's the catch.
Period.
That's what reading does. So that's exactly what you have to address.
Nobody was alienated. It was a level playing field. So what I found was that the kids who consistently only read 20 or 30 pages by the end of the year in that school year read more than they'd ever read before in their lives. They read Harry Potter by the end of the year. If you added up all the pages that
that's
they
where
had
you went wrong.
read.
You let them read Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. God, for real.
That should have been on our list earlier of commonly banned books.
I think they listen, this is
commonly banned.
What I did not know about this community I was teaching in. I don't know if this is true.
Jumps first into another volcano.
You should definitely say it. Whatever it is, definitely say it.
I'm going to say it because I believe that it is true. Somebody told me this whenever I first started going through the censorship battles, and I wasn't from there. They were like, you are doing what? Young adult literature? They burned Harry Potter at Church of God. And I was like, sorry to say what? Like the biggest church in town, like is this big youth group. And that was what I was told. And I have no reason to believe that it was not true. Funny story. My ex-husband, so in this town, his aunt lived in this town. And she worked at a particular establishment and was going to give me her discount until she saw that I was buying all the Harry Potter books. And she said, I'm sorry, I can't give you my discount. And I was like, why? And she's like, I don't support that witchcraft. I was like, oh, my bad. So I bought it without the discount.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't support that witchcraft. Like, okay.
That's a t-shirt.
I don't support that witchcraft.
It's going to be our new podcast slogan.
That's
16-1. I don't support that witchcraft.
Honestly, I would buy the shirt.
Still, yes.
I would love it. So here the rubric opened up the access to everybody, which was the problem. Like suddenly it's not just the good kids in the school. It's not just the AP kids that are reading books and get this free pass on illicit material because they're smart enough to handle it. It's suddenly everybody in the school is reading stuff that they want to read. They're intrigued by it. They're dedicated to it. They are empowered by it. In these conversations, these kids became intellectual, if not all the way more intellectual than they'd ever been before. And that's a good feeling, as you know, to be able to like hold your own in a conversation and stuff. Like,
I mean, you're making me want to go start a book club right now. So
listen, do it, but be warned.
I'm going to run myself out of my town.
Honestly, I don't know that this would happen again in this current context. I look back and I think, just like anybody who looks at like rhetoric and context, you think, what else? Especially as I've like gotten familiar with my Enneagram and realized that everything's not always about me. Like I look back and I go,
I like that we're just like throwing that in as like a moment for ourselves.
I've had a lot of growth.
It's important to talk about where we've come from.
Where we've come from. It's important. Well, I mean, because honestly, for a long time, like I'll never forget a commenter on my blog post really hurt my feelings. And it hurt my feelings for about a year as I would.
And you're still about to recite it verbatim.
I am not hurt anymore. I'm just kidding. No, he said, this is not about you. You should know this is not about you. You're acting like this is about you. You don't have a fandom. This is about a concept. This is about books being banned. And I remember like going, oh, yeah, this is big. This is not about me. This is really, really big. And so when I look back at that context and I go like, okay, what's going on? Okay, this is the year Obama was elected. People were taking their schools back for Jesus because they feel suddenly like the Antichrist has taken over the country. And so they are reacting in a way that is the only way they can react. They can't change the national scene, but by God, they can take back their public schools. And so
by
here
God,
I
we can
am.
deny you the discount.
We are denied.
It was probably like 10%, right? I mean, it was like 20% at most.
Hey, 10% when you're buying the
you don't
whole
get it.
entire set.
Yeah, that's a big discount when you're talking about box sets of Harry Potter.
It was like $20 off, but whatever. So yeah, like I look back and try to understand this, and I don't know that the same perfect storm would happen now as it did then. Social media has just taken off. Like I said, the political storm, we're in
Especially
the
for
eye of it.
Kentucky. That's like,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then there's also the socioeconomic kind of placeholding that happens there, which is everybody has their place and their order. And like suddenly a book club, I wrote lots of grants. I brought in over $16,000 maybe in grants in a few years there to buy books.
yeah.
Well, that's what I mean in a very poor area, and I want to make sure that you know too, these were not the quote unquote like good kids that were in my book club. At the enrollment of the following year, there were 133 kids that signed up for that book club. 133, almost none of them in any of the upper level courses.
Wow.
These are kids. Suddenly, you all, it was the disenfranchised that wanted to be part of this book club,
and
because
they aren't
heard,
normally people who get
no,
to.
no, they are not.
Well, that's when we need to get up in arms, is when, when those people feel empowered, then we got to make a fuss.
Right.
Here's the real problem.
Right. We don't empower them. We like give them charity,
Right.
but we don't lift them up.
So
This only works if I'm feeling good about myself when they are okay.
So the dollar books were fine. We've really pushed it too far with
$16,000 not okay.
Absolutely.
But dollar books from Half Price Books totally fine.
I worked
the god of education.
I worked my butt off to write grants and get data and support everything that I was doing to gains in literacy.
Yeah.
I could support with data everything I was doing. So anyway, suddenly, you know how you do with at the end of the year with tests, you get together and you disseminate test data and you identify your targeted groups and you come up with these BS plans for how you're going to help them. Okay. Oh, we're going to blah, 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 because this particular subsect of our minority section needs help reading. So we're going to, I don't know, say hi to them in the hallways more, all of these things that don't work. And so here, all of a sudden, there's 133 kids joining my book club, and they are the ones that need targeting. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So the school's minority percentage was 7%. And I know all of this stuff because I wrote grants all the time. It was like 33% in my book club.
Oh my gosh.
Like those kids that didn't really feel like they were part of the up and coming in that society are up and coming in my book club. They're making choices. They're leading the club. They're finding books they want to read. They're suggesting them to the rest. They're organizing the democratic process of voting on which books we want to buy. And we're literally buying these books. We're spending thousands of dollars buying the books they want to read. Do you know what it's like for a poor kid to say, this is the book I want to read, to rally the other kids and say, hey, let's read this one, get everybody to vote. And then I drop $7,000 on books.
Right.
It's
so empowering.
Is empowering.
Oh yeah. I mean, and just the process of doing it. It's so, I mean, you're doing all kinds of persuasive things that are like, so cool.
You guys, we brought authors in. We Skyped with authors. We took a trip. Nikki Giovanni gave us a private writing workshop at Virginia Tech, organized like a school tour for us. I mean, like there were cool things happening.
There are a couple other, Kate, you made notes here about Chris Crutcher and Lori Halls Anderson also. Were they involved at this point?
Well, I tell you what, once the issue started to take wing, parents started to ban these books. So what happened was one parent, God, it was dirty. She scheduled a meeting with me.
You're going back through it now. You're like, this is some trauma we're opening up. I'm sorry.
I mean, it is.
I am getting so wound up by this story in so many different directions. Well, I'm like, I want to cry because it sounds so awesome. And I also want to get mad at the parents that you're about to talk about. I already want to just, I want to spit in their Cheerios.
I'm glad that this is awakening some emotion in you, because sometimes I worry that I'm rambling. Like I feel like I'm just rambling.
No, not at all. Never.
And the story is so maddening. And I want you to know this is not hyperbole. If anything, I'm downplaying it because I want to not be dramatic. But it's ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. We were doing such good things. Had there been strong leadership in that school, it would never have happened.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. I teach around people. I teach with strong leadership now. I don't think I would accept a job anymore if I got a whiff
that it wasn't
leadership. I know my worth now. Like I'm not working for somebody that is not a strong leader. If you are in here because of the Bubba system, I will find somewhere else to work, because that's exactly what happened. There were people in charge who should not have been in charge. And so One parent scheduled a meeting with me because she loved me so much and her kid loved me so much. This kid was not in my book club. She just loved my class. And she was a teacher herself, and she had been a principal before.
You gotta watch out for
and
those.
She just wanted to know what I was doing.
We eat
because
our
she
own.
couldn't believe her kid loved me.
We do.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
She just said we eat our own, and she's so right.
Oh yeah,
It's our favorite feast.
Absolutely. Like so this woman was a coworker in a different, she was a district colleague. So she comes in and she is making notes. She is asking me questions. And I am just so proud of this process that I have birthed through my labors and my grant writing. Yes. She wrote down everything and turned it into an email that she sent to the board members, that she sent to the superintendent. She sent to all the principals at my school and said I was teaching soft pornography.
Because why? Because what? Okay, so what was soft pornography?
So at this point, I've been doing this process for a year. Got a lot of dollar books.
A lot of dollar books.
I'm at every book sale there is. I'm getting all the cheap books. Plus, I've gotten all these grants. And what I was doing was, because the book club had so many books, and there was nowhere to store them in the department library, I had boxes and boxes of book club books in my room that I then would let students in their literature circles in my classroom choose from as options because I had them. And they were reading, let me tell you, they read these. Now, this is English 2 and English 4 students read or attempted to read 18 books a year outside of curriculum. I taught 3 books a year. They attempted to read 18 additional. Some kids read all 18. Some kids didn't read a single one all the way, but by the end of the year, read 300 or 400 pages. Yeah. Anyway, so there were books in my room that were young adult literature books that these kids could choose to read. So there was a wide array of books. The one that ticked everybody off was called Lessons from a Dead Girl. They called it the lesbian book. And that's why when you Google me, it's like that I went down fighting for LGBTQ rights. I wish I was that cool.
Oh, baby.
Like, that's not what happened.
I didn't realize that was the book.
Well, so there were a few before it.
Gotcha.
But this is the one that, this is the hill everyone died on.
Gotcha.
We crested that hill at break of day. How dare I support? And truly, listen, this is something that, the media has gotten everything wrong about my story. Like, when I say the media, I mean, anybody.
You heard it here, folks. This podcast, the true definitive record of what happened.
Absolutely.
Right here.
This is the only place where I've ever shared about it, other than the one Facebook Live I did, which I took down. It's still there. I just decided when I went out looking for jobs, maybe I shouldn't have that on my Facebook.
That's fair.
So anyway, everybody spun it because I wasn't talking to the media because my union rep said not to. Don't say anything. So everybody said their own thing. So we know part of what has happened on the right is that it's like, oh, this teacher fought for LGBTQ lit. Like, no, I didn't. I wish. But there was a kid in that book that had a friend that was gay. That was it.
Oh,
he wasn't even a character.
Really?
He had a friend that was gay. And and if they want to call this the lesbian book because it was about sexual abuse, then they're freaking weird.
Yeah.
That's not gay. That's
take.
Abuse. You know what I mean? So I struggled with that then. Why are you guys calling this book what you're calling this book when that's not what this book is about? This book is about sexual abuse. And so before that book, there were 2 other books that a parent came in and my assistant principal, who was not the one in charge, defended me and defended the books and said, we will not pull these books. But then once another parent came, they all went to church together. Once another parent came, then the head principal, who should never have been the head principal, came. And he let everything fall to pieces. And he said, well, Miss Mullins, what do you got to say for yourself? That's what he said in a meeting. What? Mad. And the other guy who should have been head principal said, no, she has done X, she has done Y, she has done Z. She's on the ballot for teacher of the year. We trust her. We're not banning these books. But then as soon as head honcho takes over, head honcho lets the whole village burn down because he's afraid to take a stand and he doesn't trust me.
Yeah.
And so
a school administrator? No.
Who knew?
Shock.
That would never happen.
Shock and all. So anyway, this parent who sent a letter to an email to the board is what truly turned this into whatever. So me being very foolhardy at this time, I was a 4th year teacher at this point, I fire back an email to the school board and the principals and this parent.
You had the time.
9 pages. I made the time. I said, I have the time. We will address this today. Here is my dissertation.
Allow me to run you through.
Allow me to, absolutely. And that was the wrong choice to make. I should never have put a whole bunch of stuff in print. Like I laid out here,
Wrong
my
choice.
class, right? These are all optional, whatever. I mean, everything I said, it's not like there was anything I said that was, I just said too much.
Yeah.
I should never have validated that woman's crazy claims.
That's probably like that was probably the biggest issue, is that you gave her any room to breathe.
Oh, right. To say soft pornography. And she said that my books were making fun of kids with special needs. Excuse me.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
I would have had to have written nine minimum.
I wrote 9 pages back because like that, it was so inflammatory. The email was so inflammatory. And then also her claims were just so false. She's like, my kid is in the course. What did they call it then? It was called CP, was like pre-AP. Not honors. Where I went, there was pre-AP.
Oh, okay.
And then there was AP. And then there was just like tracked classes.
Yeah.
So there were the kids from richer houses and then the kids from poorer houses. And that basically is how you can look at how the tracking went down. Yep. So the kids who were, from a higher SES are going to college. The kids who are from a lower SES are not going to college. And then they were not part of the advanced course track. They were just a little better off.
Sure.
And so this parent's claims were that I was bypassing books with a great track record for preparing their kids to going to college and replacing them with high interest young adult smut that is, degrading to people with special needs and blah, blah, blah.
So they really thought that was the move.
Yeah, they thought. And here's what I, clearly defined in my dissertation back to her. Reluctant readers are not going to read the things with a great track record. And I'm sorry that, I didn't say this, but I'll say it now. You know who you are. Your kid couldn't read well.
Yeah.
None of them could read well.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just wasting my energy. They were reluctant readers, but they also, because they were reluctant, were unpracticed readers.
Right. And so giving them something they have an interest in.
Yes.
God forbid.
And they could choose.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, gosh.
So that
you're
is
not
what
national board certified at this point either.
No, I got national board certification to try to save my job at this point because I was like, these people are coming for me.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a group of them did come for me. One teacher who was the aunt of one of the kids whose mom didn't win with the vice principal against me, she and her whole posse from the vocational school came down to try to intellectually jump me. Yeah, no pitchforks except for metaphorical pitchforks. I don't know. We're coming down here to get answers. Get answers.
And this all started with a student who was not in the book club at all.
Yes,
this parent approached you because
the first parent
from the book in class, not the book club.
Yes,
gotcha.
Yes, 50-50. The first 4 books that people had problems with, 2 were book club books and 2 were not.
Do you mind
One was a war book.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, I don't mind telling you what they are. The Last True Story I'll Ever Tell. I think John Philip Crawford, maybe. Rapture of Canaan. Don't remember the author. That was an Oprah's book club pick.
Ooh.
What My Girlfriend Doesn't Know by Sonia Soames.
Ooh, yeah.
And Lessons from a Dead Girl by Joe Knowles. So the decisions I made, I love her. And I tell you what, I hate to even bring up the title of her book because I think it really bothers her the way that people have completely defamed her book. And then she keeps going viral every time I do because hers is the Sentinel text.
Well, can I just say that I got to meet Joe at the last NCTE I went to, and I told her I knew you. I think I sent you a selfie.
You sent me a picture. Yeah.
Just loves you so. She was so cool. Truly, I talked to her for so long. She's so big fan of her. So she doesn't.
I still have a bunch of her books. She sent 50 book plates, signed book plates to stick inside of the books that we had bought. She was so supportive. She Skyped with us and everything. So I mean, Joe, I'm sorry if this ends up popping up on your Google thing that we've named you, but
it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, and I hope it at least brings awareness. But the thing is, 2 of the 4 books were not YALSA and other YA accredited recommended books. 2 of them were for adults. So I said to the first parent comes against Lessons from a Dead Girl and Last True Story I'll Ever Tell. Vice principal says, I'm defending my teacher. I'm defending her choices. We're not banning these books. Okay. That teacher, her sister taught in the school. Her sister didn't have any kids in my class, but her co-teacher did. And her co-teacher's daughter loved me. And she and I had been working together on my national board certification, I think, or for something else, doing my word wall in English class in her business class, combining our efforts. And we were tracking growth of kids who were, blah, blah, blah. We were actually working well together. Suddenly she hated my guts, brought her husband in. Her husband actually made me very uncomfortable. when he chose a sexual part of the book and looked at me in the meeting and was like, read it out loud, word for word. I want to hear you.
What is this?
Oh my God.
And because it was on the back in this particular scene in The Rapture of Canaan, it's a very conservative religious girl who I think is, I don't remember the whole premise. I mean, I remember the premise of the story. I don't remember all the details.
Sherry
She's
Reynolds,
on the back
by
of
the
the
way.
bus. There it is. Sherry Reynolds.
Reynolds.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for honoring the author with that because I forgot. So in the back of the bus, the girl heard some illicit things said, as we do in the back of the bus.
How dare you?
How dare you? That section of the book lasts for like half a page. It's not what the book is about. This dad, I will never forget it. I will never forget. I mean, it was like my first experience with like blatant misogyny. It was very weird. He wanted to hear me say those things out loud, and he wanted to watch me do it, and he wanted to have the power to make me say it. And I looked at my principal. Now, this is the head honcho who's been called in, and he's just kicked back like this, looking at me. And I said, do I have to do that? He said, I don't know, Miss Mullins. Do you?
Oh
And I was
my
like,
gosh.
What? And I said,
Run.
no, I'm not reading that. I said, these are not books that we read out loud. I didn't make your child read that book
Right.
out loud. These are choice reading books that they read at home. I would never try to embarrass a child by making them read something that I thought was explicit out loud. Anyway, so that book, after that scenario, here's what I acquiesced to. I said, I will remove all books from the choice reading circles that are not meant for young adults. I will stick with just books that are on the American Library Association's list.
And you can't argue it.
That's what I'll offer. Or can you, right? Because that's what I thought.
Oh, wait.
I thought, here's exactly my thought process. The American Library Association books are downstairs in the library. I'm getting worked up now.
Sorry.
Students do not have to have parental permission to go to their own library and check out a book. And so I thought, using that reasoning, anything that I use that is American Library Association, nobody will have a leg to stand on because
if they can find it in a library, then why can't they find it in a classroom?
That's actually just to jump in real quick. In one of the most recent pieces of legislation that I was just reading about just this week, and I'm pretty sure this was in Texas, they're essentially proposing exactly what you're just talking about, inserting into every single classroom decision that teachers usually make on behalf of students an opportunity for parents to give a thumbs up or thumbs down to whatever is being taught to their kid. And if they don't want their kid to learn a particular thing, then they can just thumbs down whatever that particular book is.
I have a firm no for that because the amount of times that I've had a parent-teacher conference and the parent has said, I haven't read a book since I was in 9th grade. And it was Of Mice and Men.
And here,
like that's it. That's where it ended.
That's it. That's where it ended on a Lexile level of 3rd grade. Because Of Mice and Men, let's face it, that's not the smartest book out there.
No, it's not meant to be. Yeah, like that's
it's not. Right, it's a rhetorical piece. So like you've got these parents that this is something that I learned at one of my little sessions talking with teachers, like trying to process what was going on during that time. They said, if you make people choose, you don't want to know what they'll choose. And the same thing with these legislations. You give people like that a choice, guess what they're going to choose? They're going to choose what they don't understand, what they don't know, what seems the safest option to them because they don't actually have the information that they need. They don't understand. So it's so ridiculous. So at this point, I cut anything that wasn't what I thought was protected to let it go and save the rest. And so then all of a sudden I get an email or a letter on school letterhead from my principal that left me to roast in that meeting that said they were from that moment on basically banning everything in my room, hundreds of books. Any book in my room, I was not allowed to let students borrow a book from me. Everything in my room was off limits. The only books that I was allowed to let students read or whatever were books from the English department library. Now that whole thing had its issues too, because half of this crap is in the English department library. English department libraries are not full of Bible verses. You know what I'm saying? Like we read about the human experience and it's ugly.
Wait.
So,
are you sure? I just
about the Bible verses?
Just the human experience as well.
Just checking.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, that's in the English department library, I'm sure. And I had a class set called the Bible as Literature at that point that we would use to look up allusions and stuff. And even that was banned. So they shot themselves in the foot.
How dare they?
How dare they?
They know what they were going to get rid of.
They got rid of the things that they just didn't even know. It was absolutely astoundingly ridiculous. And so I fought back. And so I never once was insubordinate. Actually, I wasn't insubordinate.
I was going to say,
I'm going to save
To
this story
know
for the
you.
end.
Maybe
Goes
just
back
to
to
save
back
yourself.
again.
Just a pinch of insubordination.
No, I wasn't insubordinate. I went to my principal and I said, can I have a recourse to fight this? We had a bunch of committees in the school at that point, and I was on literacy committee, and they kicked me off of it. They had made me chair of the literacy committee, and then they took it away after that. They're like,
You
oh.
should have seen that one coming.
Yeah, it hurt my feelings bad. I should have
We're
seen
going
it
to
coming,
send
but I
you
didn't.
to you.
So, but here's how it works in all these podunk schools. They have these committees, and it's only the one person that leads it that does any work, and all the coaches show up, and they're like, "Well, I'm on my committee. See ya." So when this
I
went
don't
down, I
care
was like,
what
well,
you all read, as long as I don't have to read it.
as long as I don't have to read it, and as long as I don't have to spend any of my energy doing anything else with it. So when this started to happen, I went to my principal and I was like, can I start a book approval committee through the literacy committee? I chair the literacy committee. I will give these books to the literacy committee, let them read them and deliberate. And if the literacy committee passes the book, then we can use it. Well, the literacy committee mutinied and they kicked me out. So
They're like, I'm not doing your homework, lady.
they're like,
I'm sorry, but that's my favorite part of the story so far.
They're jumping off. They're like, nope.
Who is she?
So they
It's just the sheer amount of time wasted in trying to prevent you from bringing joy to kids' lives. It's just,
I know.
whew.
It's astounding.
Think
The
about
kids
what could have
loved
been
it.
done with all of that energy if it had been put to productive use, Just
Oh,
like
absolutely.
anything. A
Think
neighborhood
of what
improvement
could have
project.
been.
Just whatever.
If there was a strong principal there, think of all the good press that would have come from all the books that kids are reading.
You
from
would
the
have
ways that
also
they're
you would
getting
have
involved.
gotten all of the race to the top funding that existed.
Yes, if they would not have tried to just stomp me under. Anyway, so I get kicked off the literacy committee. I love
That
it.
should be your
'Cause I was
bumper
like-
sticker for life, truly.
Kicked off the literacy committee, y'all.
National board certified literacy committee dropout.
Literacy, not dropout, dude.
That's true.
They kicked me off the
That's
ship.
true.
This is Jonah and the whale stuff. They threw me overboard.
Literacy committee
So-
outcast.
Outcast. So I went to my principal after that, and I'm looking for a new committee home. And I said, can I?
Hold on. Your entire identity is what committee you're on. That
You
is
wanted
truly.
You wanted more committee
Well,
work.
You know what? I could
No,
really
no,
use
they-
some more press.
Every teacher had to be on 2 committees, and the literacy committee kicked me out.
I'd love to really grind my reputation into the dirt here. Can you find another committee for me, please?
Every committee's like, nah,
Turns out,
we're full.
every committee is like, we're
It's just you. You're your own committee.
So I did start my own committee. And I mean, I will say, just to be fair, like, I'm making light of the literacy committee. They didn't kick me out. They demoted me. I was no longer like the chair. I was just like a normal person in the committee, but nobody wanted to do like the committee work. So I was like outcasted. They wanted me to leave.
Chair without a title.
I
The
love it.
Literacy Committee Chronicles.
It's like former literacy
God, it was
committee
miserable.
is what Risha's door says.
Absolutely. Like,
Oh,
artist
chair of the
formerly known
Literacy
as-
Committee?
Put it on her
I'm
tombstone.
like sitting in the very back of the room by myself at meetings.
That committee's not going to tell you when that meeting is. I mean, they're just ghosting you.
No.
Like tomorrow,
Oh, sorry,
4
you
p.m.
didn't get the email.
It must have bounced
So-
back. That's weird.
I go to my principal and I say, can I start a book approval committee? Can I start a committee and get volunteers?
Can I be the chair of
volunteer
it too, by the way?
Can I
I'm down a committee. Somebody.
I want my chair back.
My ego says I must chair something now. Can I please chair a new committee?
This is real. Who among
So-
us hasn't had a moment been like, "What?
Oh.
I'm not chairing enough committees right now. Time to do something
I'm not
about
chairing
that."
enough. I'm 27 years old and not chairing a committee? What? So I asked my principal if I can start a book approval committee. I wrote the bylaws for it. I stayed up before I even went to this man. I wrote all the everything
You
for
wrote
it.
bylaws and everything.
I wrote the bylaws.
For a
I
one-person
had Roman
committee.
numerals. For a one-person committee with a dream.
Hey, even a one-person committee needs bylaws, man.
I got to keep
If I'm
myself in
going to
check.
attack the other committee members, I got to keep myself straight here.
No one is going to join you.
Section 4.
As I said earlier.
Friends, you want to join me? There's bylaws.
You know the scene in The Grinch where he's like, 6 p.m. dinner with myself, I can't miss that again? That's Risha with her committees.
Yes.
She's like, well, I can't miss
This is me with my committee. I can't miss it again. I have a committee meeting today.
every day.
At the bar. My committee is meeting at the bar at 4.
They don't know it yet, but we just decided.
So I say to him, I want 8 teachers and a couple of parents to be on this committee and read these books. I'm not okay with just letting all of these books go. And he says, hey, this is great. You know that quintessential masculine drive to like kick the tires on a car to make sure that car is ready to go.
I'm mad just thinking about it, but yeah.
Yeah. You walk out there.
Suspenders and you need to grumble a little
Yeah.
bit.
Kicking tires. Oh yeah. Air's good. Air good. He flipped through my bylaws and he was like, all right. I was like, okay.
Oh my God.
Cool. All right. So I started a committee. So I sent an email to the faculty and I was like, I need volunteer readers. I need to read these books. We need to determine grade levels and you all keep in mind, this is not a fight to get them on the curriculum. This is not a fight to teach them. I never talked about any of these books with kids ever. They talked to each other. I made notes of what they said and they could not read a word of it and pass. This is not the hill I should have been dying on, but
There are plenty of hills.
And I realize now
die on.
that I've used that metaphor 3 times now, so I'm going to back away from it. But anyway, he says yes. And he says yes, but he wants to appoint the parents that are on the committee. So he appoints 2 parents that are vehemently opposed to whatever. And so we read books for a year. I had eight teachers, and I had 2 parents, and only 1 book failed. And that book was going to fail anyway, because there's no way I would have put it out for kids. It was a graphic novel, and it was a book about the genocide in Rwanda, but it just was not a fit. There was nothing about that book that I was ready to release.
Really?
But I was happy that a book failed, because then it made it
showed the process
look like the committee wasn't just passing everything. Yeah. And they weren't. We were reading, we were having discussions, and what the committee was doing was deliberating and deciding this is okay to put on a optional reading list for 10th grade, and this is okay to put on an optional reading list for 12th grade. And what they told me to do was that once the committee passed these books, we could put them on our curriculum maps as optional reading options. Not as, actually, no. They said once they went on the maps, we could teach them if we wanted to, but nobody wanted to, because we all had this stuff that we taught already. It was all really for anybody who wanted to do literature circles,
just
for kids to have choice reading.
For the sake of having them cleared to use them.
So for the rest of that year, we read books and we introduced them little by little. We got some books back. Literature circles started to flourish again. Not everything was available for every grade, but everything was available for the seniors. And it was great. And so what I was told to do by our curriculum director at the school the next year was to put all of the optional reading lists that were approved for that grade level on my syllabus as optional reading lists. And so I did. And so I started that next year thinking all of this is behind me, and it was not behind me. So 2 parents who were church, they went to the same church. I think there was a coalition of parents. They were involving their churches in this, basically. Like, I hate to even say that, but they were. And at this point in my life, I thought this is also an identity crisis for me, as you can probably tell, because like I thought I was just like them. I had no clue. I mean, I was like I was praise team pianist and singer at my church.
Yeah,
like a little Pentecostal church. I mean, I wasn't just playing around. Yeah. Like, I went to a Pentecostal church.
And you were like in the area with your husband at the time and your kid.
Absolutely.
Like, you were like,
I mean, like, I was doing the thing.
Right. Like, you were living the life.
In it.
I was living the life and loving that life. And I actually felt like that was my identity. And I had I was so confused by these people, because here I am thinking that I'm just like them with my beliefs. And yet, like, I'm clearly not. And yet, every time they say something, I meet them with rationality, but that's not what they're looking for. Like, it was so confusing for me. And it was actually an identity crisis for me at the same time as this was an intellectual crisis.
It feels kind of familiar.
So these parents,
I guess I'd say, I think that journey feels familiar, of having grown up just around pretty conservative Christian town, and then just having stuff like, especially with literature, literature for some reason was at the heart of a lot of this for me too, but just like having literature be this unintentional wedge that just it creates it doesn't even create them. It just surfaces these things that are divisions for people, and you don't even it's mind boggling because you don't know why. And I still don't know why. It's just like, why have you all decided that this is the thing that doesn't work for you? Or like, why this thing especially that is getting kids who've never really been excited about reading before into reading?
Like it's like power. Like they feel like this is their way of strong arming the system because they can't strong on their kid. Like they're losing control of the things that their kids consume. They don't know what's on their kids' phones. They're uncomfortable with the things that their kids know. And they think, I can control this because I can bully the school system. I can go in there and, let me present you with the most egregious case of irony that I've ever encountered. None of the books that were banned at this point in my story were officially banned. There was nothing that went through the board policies that actually banned books. They removed all the books because there was conflict, but there was no actual ban. I could have continued teaching those books, or not teaching.
Yeah, that would require accountability, though, and we can't have that.
We cannot have that. And so, like, I followed what they wanted me to do, but there was actually nothing filed against. When parents, this is the point I was getting ready to make. This is just the thing that I like to make sure people know is that at the end of it, 6 books were banned. After hundreds were banned. And then there was still like a shadow ban on those 100. They're like, all right, these aren't banned. Wink, wink. Don't use any of them. However, only 6 books got banned and then unbanned. I'll get to that in just a second. But never once was a book that was banned by a person whose kid had the option to read that book in that class.
I don't like people.
Let me say one more time.
Go ahead.
Not a single one of the 6 books that were actually filed against and banned were filed by a parent whose child had the option to read that book in the class. Not one.
Okay. So they're just like, no, never.
No, this was a community agenda that had nothing to do with anything other than bullying the school system to make themselves feel better about things they felt powerless about in the world.
So were there like similar themes of those 6, or were they just like
no.
Just whatever they didn't like?
Yeah. One of them is used in religious schools all over the nation.
Really?
And there's no cussing in it. There's one instance where a bad guy has a girl pinned in a bathroom and you can tell that he has bad intentions for her. And then the girl is then rescued by another boy. And the argument is that it could promote a discussion of rape. And there was also the argument that this book could promote a discussion of abortion.
We're not allowed to discuss rape or abortion?
Things that might happen.
Neither of those took place in the book. Right. Those were just things that may indirectly
be part of it.
Come from, yeah.
And that doesn't happen.
Well, we all know that if you simply omit any discussion in your life about rape or abortion, that you will never have to confront those problems.
Yeah. No. You'll never face it. So we should just dust it under the rug and never let kids that are 16 to 19 years old discuss it. So anyway, but here was the best irony. This is the irony. This is the one I want to make sure that you and all your listeners know. The parent who banned the book Unwind, that's the name of the book that doesn't have a cuss word. It's used in parochial schools. Her child didn't have an option to read it. Her child was reading something else. This was for sophomores. She banned the book, but let her kid go see The Hangover when it came out in theaters at the same time.
Say what?
I want to say that. She banned Unwind with no cuss words, no sexual scenes, only on she cried in the meeting. She's like, the parents in the book don't love their children. And what are we telling to our children when we allow them to read books where parents don't love their children? I'm like, is anybody in this room going to confront the insanity before us?
No.
Like, I am not even kidding. As she's weeping about the fact that parents don't love their children in this book, I know as I'm sitting there watching her that her daughter went to see The Hangover with permission that Friday.
And you just know that, and you just have to sit on it.
I know that because her kid was a senior too. Like this is a person, her kid is a senior in high school, and she's banning a sophomore optional read because parents in the book don't love their children, while she's letting her child go see The Hangover.
Which is not.
And I failed her child on a final because her child was cheating on a final. I hated to fail that child. I loved that child, but I caught her cheating, and I had to do the right thing. And I'm like, your child will cheat. Your child has gone to see The Hangover. Your child is wild. You don't know that, but I do because I know everything because I hear everything that I don't want to hear.
Right, because that's exactly how teachers' ears work.
And you are banning Unwind by Neil Shusterman. Lady, get a grip.
Right. You got bigger issues.
Yeah. So that year, what happened was those two parents, they switched. The sophomore parent banned the senior book, and the senior parent banned the sophomore book. But they were best friends, and they came at me at once in the meeting. They had the literacy committee, the book approval committee banned. So they banned the whole committee.
Oh,
and
you worked so hard.
I worked so hard on that committee. And they said that committee doesn't follow the board process. All my principal had to do was take my bylaws and take the committee rulings through the site-based decision-making council and have it ratified.
And that was it.
And he didn't. I didn't know that was supposed to happen, but he did, or he should have. He probably did.
Well, there's a reason why he didn't, I'm sure.
Yeah, because now the committee's unprotected from somebody who wants to argue nuts and bolts. So they ban it, and they ban all the books. So we have to collect the books from students again. And they say, we want a district censorship committee. And so then they made they wanted a district one that followed board policies. Meanwhile, the superintendent is allegedly, wink, wink, allegedly, going to churches and speaking against this whole issue. Kids were going to school and saying he spoke to their youth group or whatever.
Wow, they really didn't like this whole reading thing. Is this guy trying to
make a play? Like, is he trying to make a play or like keep his job or like be popular? Or something?
No.
What is the nature of the beef with you? Like it sounds like it's personal, is what it sounds like.
I know now that it isn't. I thought it was then. Like I said, I've done some work.
I would have thought it was personal.
Hold on.
I mean, it sounds personal, right?
It does. Wait, Chelsea, did you spill your scotch? You got so mad about this? Is that what I'm looking at right now?
I got really excited and I spilled my scotch all over my keyboard and my mouse.
So sorry.
I saw her hands flail, and I was like, "Oh!" And then she ran. I was like, "That's the scotch." Okay.
Well, it smells like Lagavulin now.
It does.
Just like permanently. It just smells like
out damn spot
and smoke. So
this is what happens when she gets work.
Well, actually, and I think it probably smells nice. I'm sorry that I've animated you to the point where you've wasted good alcohol. And potentially a keyboard.
She just smelled that paper towel.
I did. It smells good.
I can't let it go to waste.
Molly Shannon.
Yes.
Here. Well, I can still get drunk.
I love it. Good. What for you?
Okay. I was just doing that as a joke, but I joked a little too seriously.
And she fainted from the fumes.
That's like ether. Okay. Anyway, continue.
I'm sure. When you said, what is this guy's shtick? Like, what's this thing? Is it personal? He did hate my guts at this point. He was in his 70s. I'm pretty sure that he was in his 70s. So he was a school teacher, and this is in 2008. Yeah. So he was a school teacher 50 years prior, and we all know what America was like then. And here he is, the man in power, and he doesn't like what America is now.
This is not good.
And he actually brought the librarian. And this is all alleged because I don't have I don't have proof, but the librarian was scared out of her boots because she said, they're coming for the library next.
Yeah.
She had to stop supporting me. She said, they are coming for the library. I have to protect the library.
So depressing.
Yeah. Oh, listen, she was fighting on the underground. She had us To Kill a Mockingbird t-shirts made that said, I got chills. I
was just about to start crying, so that's about it. That's where I'm going.
Well, let me tell you, this woman is humble and sweet and quiet, and she is like the actual stereotypical dorky librarian. You know, like cardigan wearing,
the best kind,
like glasses, like the dorky glasses before the dorky glasses were cool. You know what I'm saying?
She's doing it all.
Glasses on a chain, kind of dorky. Okay,
like precious lenses, like cat eyes.
Yes,
kind of,
absolutely. The purest heart. And she had To Kill a Mockingbird t-shirts made for the English department that said, until I feared I would lose it, I did not love to breathe. Or no, to read. Until I feared I would lose it, I did not love to read.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a quote from To Kill a Mockingbird. School banned the shirt.
No! Okay, I hate this.
Sorry.
I have tears in my eyes.
I will not let you cry because it gets funnier.
They banned a t-shirt.
They banned Books Week, to be clear.
Okay. This couldn't have written itself, honestly. This is the most perfect circle.
This is why I wrote the book and got a literary agent because it's wild. It's wild. The book didn't sell, but maybe your podcast will help it sell. I don't know.
This is your moment.
But, so we had these shirts, and the school said they sent out an email, and we know it wasn't from the principal because the email was legible. Someone else wrote it, and it said, "We do not support any discussions in the classroom that may lead people to make one decision or another, or that may be perceived as political. And so because of that, we are not participating in Banned Books Week." They made that sweet librarian take down all of her Banned Books Week. You know how hard librarians work on Banned Books Week.
That's like their
They made her take
Christmas.
It all down. It was ridiculous. Right. It's like their
I am
Christmas.
sad.
She had to take all of it down. We were told that we were not allowed to wear any clothing that might promote Banned Books Week or that might have people take a side on banned books. So you know what I did? I gave my shirt to students, and I let students wear the Banned Book shirt in my stead. So I was like, here, y'all wear it. So, I mean, it was getting to this point where it's just like, are you freaking kidding me? Now, this is when the superintendent allegedly sent his minion down to gather the librarian and bring her to him because he had told her that he wanted to see data. Where are people reading these books? He's not going to allow any books into his school where there's no data for them. So she and another teacher who couldn't support me out loud were both working hardcore to find curricula all over the United States that included these books, college courses that included these books, et cetera, to present to him, to prove to him that students had a right to read books that were of high interest for choice, right? How ridiculous is that? He told her when he was down there, though, and this is where probably some stories have picked up that I was a heroine at this point for LGBTQ rights in the world. He said, "I'm not letting the ALA bring their gay propaganda into my school. None of these books will survive as long as I'm here." And basically letting her know, clean up your library.
Oh my gosh.
That's what he said to her when she brought the rulings down there. And there were not, this is friends, this is what I'm telling you. I did not have that on my agenda.
No. But this
I didn't have an
this is
agenda.
the welcome to the
It shows
lawsuit
the books.
part of the banned books discussion.
Yes. So he's saying the quiet part out loud, right to her. And then I'm going back and I'm like, what? So they are, this is kind of like it's like a little bit of the CRT stuff right now. Like, it doesn't exist. I don't have any LGBTQ books. It's not real.
No. We all know.
One book.
You're peddling the gay agenda.
Right. That's exactly what they said. There's this gay agenda that everybody is so afraid of that doesn't exist.
We got an agenda.
There's no books in my room that feature a gay character or any type of discussion.
As someone who knows Risha
about
for this long, she does not have an agenda. Let me just
agenda.
Risha does not subscribe to an agenda. Any sort of agenda.
There is no agenda,
like a personal one.
None. I'm random. No. I don't even set my alarm clock half the time. Like, and you think I've got an agenda?
I'm not that organized.
I roll out when I wake up. I'm not that organized. I don't have an agenda. It was so eye-opening to me how people operate, because I'm like, they're banning something that doesn't exist because they're afraid of something that isn't happening because somebody outside of here is telling them that it is. There's no gay books in my room. I wish there were.
Yeah, for real.
There's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's 2008.
There's none of that yet.
You know what I'm saying? It's 2008. Like, that was not what was happening. So anyway, there was just a whole lot of fear. So long story short, this is how it went down. The board set up a book approval committee. Parents then had to officially file against books. 6 books were filed against. Like I said, not a single one of those books was filed by a parent whose child was in the class that had option to read that book. The parent of a 3-year-old banned one of the books. Oh, it's ridiculous.
No. 3-year-olds read young adult literature all the time. So
yes.
you gotta be really careful.
Right? And let me say too, I think the kid was 3. The kid was definitely at least primary school. Like, there's the kid was little. This is not a kid who has an option
reading
to read
this book.
No. Another kid was a junior in somebody else's English class. So I guess maybe she's banning it just in case he had me his senior year. I don't know.
Preemptive banning.
Preemptive banning, just in case. And they allowed this. And they removed those books from my room while they were in question. And every book passed that committee. Every book, even the one that caused so much trouble that they called the lesbian book, passed the committee. The one parent that was on the committee brought her Bible to the committee, and she preached to the committee every time there was a committee meeting to try to get them not to approve these books, and they all were passed. And so then the superintendent banned them himself.
all of these committees put in all of these hours for this man and his hammer. I swear.
He knew
Really
the
just
whole
like a
damn
case study
time.
in how committees work. This is just like committees. Hours and hours and hours of pointless labor.
Absolutely, he banned it all himself because he knew he had the ultimate veto at the end. And, there's that caveat in the board literature that says the superintendent has the ultimate authority over anything that he sees as potentially disruptive taking place in the classroom. And so even though the books, nothing was disruptive until these people disrupted everything, the only disruption was positive.
Yeah, the disruption is the parents. The parents are the disruption.
They're the ones disrupting everything. So anyway, so you asked me at the beginning of this, like, what's my experience? Wow, I've talked for an hour about the experience, but it's really hard, gals, to encapsulate in a quick discussion because there are layers upon layers of like things that don't make sense. And it actually is more than a case study on committees. It's a case study on the failure of public schools. Yeah. Their board laws are written so that none of the laws matter.
Right. And it doesn't matter. Lack of trust in their educators.
The inherent lack of trust in their educators. And like, I was doing everything right.
Yeah.
I wasn't teaching these books. They were all choice books. Kids were empowered not to read what they loved, vetoing a book.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times a kid was offended or bored by page 2 and said, I don't want to read this. And it was like, cool. Okay. You know the rule. Find something else to read.
Well, also, what all of this is telling me is that these people truly know nothing about teenagers, because as soon as you say no, what? You know what's the last word I say to my kids? No.
Absolutely.
I don't want them knowing. I don't want them to. That's the challenge. That's the invitation to be like, well, guess what I'm going to do? Like,
just like you said at the beginning of this podcast, what is pedagogy of the oppressed? And I'm like, I don't know, but if it's banned, I'm going to read it. It's the same thing. And Chris Crutcher, so you asked me a minute ago, Chris Crutcher, Laurie Halse Anderson, like, what's the connection there? Chris Crutcher said that at one point. He's like, I want to thank you guys so much for banning my book because you've increased my sales. I appreciate it so much. Because as soon as you ban it, all the kids in America want to read it.
Always his take.
And someday I'm going to write a book with the explicit purpose of just it being banned.
Getting it banned so that it would sell more. It's like, it's ridiculous. So at the point where the book approval committee was banned, this started to pick up some heat because I had contacted.
I love that you're marking it by when the committee got banned, not by when the books got banned.
No, this is not by committee-driven story.
Right, it's a committee-driven story. But also, I want to make sure that you know that this was not when Banned Books Week was banned,
right?
Or when Banned Books Week T-shirts were banned,
or
right?
When the superintendent banned.
Discussion
the books.
He banned discussing the banning of banned books.
Of the banned books.
That's also been banned.
That had been banned. Yes, we gotta make sure we cover all of our bases.
School has been banned this week because
that would have been easier, honestly.
Let's ban school.
Let's ban this.
You guys need to start calling your snow days like school ban days. School's banned today.
Well, had
school
they just
banned
for the whole week.
It's hilarious.
Imagine how many committee meetings they could have had.
Can you imagine how many kids would want to show up at school if you called it school is banned?
They're like, guess what?
Well, come if you want.
I'm here.
Suddenly,
I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to learn.
So at the point where it started to turn into something pretty ugly, Laurie Halse Anderson read about it from one of Joe Knowles' journals online.
Laurie.
And yes, she is a champion of people who are fighting for kids' rights to read.
Listeners, if you haven't read Speak or anything, I mean, Laurie Halse Anderson is just the queen.
She's amazing. The book that we had of hers was Twisted, and it was one that was banned.
That's a good one.
Deadline by Chris Crutcher, one of my favorite books by Chris Crutcher. Deadline was banned.
I was going to guess Whale Talk, but...
Lessons of a Dead Girl was banned. Nope, we didn't have Whale Talk at that time. Unwind was banned. It was on the list of the 6 that were banned. Deadline, Twisted, Lessons of a Dead Girl, or Lessons from, can't remember the preposition. Unwind, probably, I don't, I'll have to look it up. I've got the file over here of every email sent in that era.
That's true. This is like young adult royalty, basically. It's remarkable.
The kings and queens are coming out.
As you name these people, I'm like, stop.
This is one thing a minute ago when we were talking about my superintendent, and you're like, what's his thing? Like, what's he doing? Y'all, he was fighting with Ellen Hopkins online.
No.
In the comments section.
I cannot.
And like the audacity of this old man who is from a different age you're fighting with Ellen Hopkins in the comments section about whether or not these books should be banned. I did not mean to make an ageist joke there. I hate the man. So it's really hard for me not to make like kind of dirty jabs. My bad. So anyway, yeah. Like this guy, it doesn't surprise me when students come in and say he's at churches preaching against the books, because he's also online. I'm watching him in real time fight with Ellen Hopkins and Neil Shusterman. I've got printed out copies of it in my file that I kept all these years. I'm afraid I would get sued, so I've kept everything. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, like the whole like thing ended up getting these authors to support me. So Laurie Hall Sanderson says, I want you as my personal guest at the National Council for Teachers of English in Philadelphia. Like, I want to feature you. And so like I stand up at NCTE and like she tells my story a little bit and there's all these people clapping for me and I'm weeping because I'm scared to death. I feel honored, but I didn't feel empowered. And as a matter of fact, I had such anxiety. I'm not safe. And I know if they get me on that stage, anything I say is going to be used against me and I'm going to lose my job. And at this point I can lose my job. I don't want to, but at this point I have other things on the side where I could pay my bills. At that point I had nothing. And if I lost my job, I don't have health insurance. I don't have anything, like I have to have my job. And in that area, there's no other jobs to have. Like if I'm not in that district, I have to drive an hour. Yeah. So I'm kind of stuck there. So anyway, so like one of the big like sad things about that is I was so anxious during the whole trip in Philadelphia. I was so afraid of what I might say if I'm questioned that I missed the whole presentation where I was invited to speak.
Did you really?
I just blacked out. I don't even know. I was just walking around. I don't even know what I was doing. And they were like, where were you? And I was like, I don't know. Where was I supposed to be? Like, you know how I am anyway. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of here and
just living.
But I missed the whole thing because I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was really afraid. Anyway, so after that, Chris Crutcher started supporting my students. The students started doing an underground thing and he was sending them bracelets that said F censorship. And they organized a town hall meeting and Chris Crutcher flew in for it. He lives in Washington State. So the kids they also were coming after the book club. And the superintendent had said to me at whatever point, one more problem with books and the book club is gone. Well, I have a lot of money in the book club fund. They would have loved it to take the book club away and then roll those funds into something else. Like they already, you guys, I had this thing going on at school. Actually, I was just in a book. Actually, the book just was published. So let me tell you about this book. It's called Becoming a Holocaust Educator. And there are about 10 educators in the nation. I don't even remember how many of us are in this book. There are a bunch of teachers in it. The teacher at OU is in it, Sue Fletcher.
Sue? I don't have that one.
Sue. Okay. Sue is featured in it.
Small world.
It's brand new. It just released last month.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Anyway, my contribution, my chapter is about the instance in which when they banned the Holocaust book, I had gotten a grant for the book. Irving Roth was flying in. We had already bought his ticket. He's coming to speak to the whole school. So we're reading his book. And some parent this is another argument for these parents not being allowed to make uninformed decisions about what can be offered. This parent said, oh, I know all about this teacher. She's not supposed to be using any books that are not in the English department library. This book that my son brought home to read about the Holocaust is not in the English department library. How she knew, I don't know. Yeah. But everybody knows everybody. So she probably asked somebody in the department, like, hey, is this a department book? And they said no. Yeah. And so then she came for me. And so what did they do? They pulled me out of the office and said, what are you doing up there? We told you you're not allowed to use any books that are not approved. I'm like, you signed off on the grant. You mean to tell me we're flying in this Holocaust survivor? We're required to teach Night, which is more graphic than this book. This book is on a 3rd grade level. It's not as graphic. It's written with more humor and hope. Right. You're telling me I am now to pull that book. Should I also tell this Holocaust survivor that he's unwelcome at our school because we're no longer allowed to read his book? Anyway, that's the chapter of the book that I'm featured in there. And they ended up, they kind of realized, I think, a bit of their stupidity there. Like, you are letting these parents sitting at home who have no clue stop this amazing activity.
You're like, the press surrounding refusing to allow a Holocaust survivor to come and speak is like,
I think they
I think
realized.
that's honestly the only thing
They
that saved
realized
you.
an error.
That's the only thing that saved you.
Probably because that's what I said to them. I said, this is not going to go well.
Yeah. Hello,
for us.
anti-Semitism. Would you like to visit us
Yeah.
just directly? Like,
Right. Thank you. Would you like to ban this book? That there's absolutely not that there's a reason to ban any book, really, but there's like none of the like typical suspects with this one, and you're just gonna ban it because
evolved to the point where the answer to that nowadays would probably be like, yeah, screw you, because now we're actually having legislators say things like, when we teach about Nazism and the Holocaust, we have to be fair to both sides.
Yes.
That's actually a literal quote that I read. It was in the same article I read about this legislation that just happened in Texas. Yeah, we have to be fair. We have to not, morally judge. We can't make moral judgments about issues relating to the Holocaust. I'm like,
unreal.
These people wanted to exterminate these other people, and you're telling me it's not appropriate to make a moral
consider both
judgment.
sides, right? No, it's ridiculous. And I like that you said that in this era, were this to happen again, the moral scruples are, I don't know. Are very,
it's all very distorted through, the packet that is the internet, and also just like the recent
has
political,
so polarized.
Yeah. We're in such a highly polarized moment in the country that the stuff that would have been interesting and important to talk about 10 years ago is now actually just stupid.
It is stupid. And what is rationality anymore? Rationality has lost its tenets.
It doesn't exist.
There is no rationality anymore. There's rationality in both sides. Like, you can be rational with the people that agree with you, but if you start speaking outside of your echo chamber, rationality no longer exists. So we're in a really dangerous place. And I think we were seeing the seeds of it starting there.
Yeah, for sure.
Starting with issues like that. And now look at the beast it has grown into. And I look at it like, oh my gosh, there was no agenda. This happened when there was no agenda.
That's what's so interesting to hear about your story now, because this happened. So, like, general time frame, this was happening
2007 to 2010.
Okay. So more than a decade ago, this was happening, and it sounds exactly like what's happening now, except now it's just amplified. Everything is instantly obnoxious and loud. Whereas before, you might have had time to go through a process to address it. Now it's just instantly like, no, sorry, this is all done.
Right.
You're done. You have no freedom. Everything is being shut down.
Right. There maybe would be no committees. There's no need for committees.
Yeah.
We actually are secure in our stance now to say, like, no.
If we take one thing away from this episode, please let it be that committees.
Committees.
Let them die.
Committees, let them die. Let them die. So Chris Crutcher came in and did a town hall talk. We invited, we as in the royal the book club presidents, they went down and gave him a hand delivered invitation to this town hall meeting. We invited when I say we, my hands truly were out of it, but I knew it was going on. And I told Chris Crutcher that too, like, I can't be involved with this. If you want to go forward with my students, wonderful, but they'll fire me. I'll show up, but I can't organize this in any way. And I did show up, and I didn't speak at the whole thing. But I listened to them speak, and it was 7 students and Chris Crutcher leading the talk.
This is so cool.
Yeah, you want to talk about an awesome moment. Chris Crutcher, Zeus of young adult literature.
Takes no like
None.
ever. He is just
I love this man, and I love he's been doing it for so long.
Right.
There's nothing new to him.
And he has
when these
his
things happen.
perspective as an author is unlike most young adult authors. Like, the work that he has done with students and with teens and like children,
absolutely,
like, gives him an edge on people that I don't think most people who read his books know. So, like, no, they don't know and they don't understand. No, and so, like, his whole world has been wrapped up, like, with the experience of trauma and what it does to students, and writing books from the perspective of people who have written him letters. Like, it's just, I just love Chris Crutcher.
No,
but this is the coolest part. Like,
he is amazing. Well, so here's Chris Crutcher. Like, this is not his first rodeo, and one of the things that about him, and Laurie Anderson too, because she's been through it too. He's just been doing it for longer. That made me feel particularly comforted was that this was all new to me, and I was scared to death. about me personally, I was very focused on myself at this time because I got to feed my kids. And at this time, I got a sick kid with heart problems. I got to have health insurance. You know what I mean? Like, and
they're
so
like,
it
this is
feels
another
so
Wednesday. And
that's
yeah.
it. That's it. That it's so like, yes, they're still upset about it, but it's like such a testament that, hey, it's going to be all right. This is not the first time we fought this. They usually don't kill people at the end of this. We're going to be, alive.
They haven't
Nobody's
butchered too many English teachers yet.
Right. You
Yeah.
won't literally be burnt at the stake. We don't think,
Probably.
So at this town hall meeting, like it was really just this moment, like I'm sitting out there and it's a former church a beautiful old church turned into the town literacy hall or something. So it looks very much like a church that we're in, stained glass windows, wooden pews. There's a reverence to it. And here are my students up there, the disenfranchised, up there with Chris Crutcher, talking about their experience with books, talking about how books have changed them, talking about how reading books have given them a place in this world. Of the 7 kids up there, I think 5 are minority students, 2 are gay, 3 were gay. They weren't out. I knew they were gay. So I'm up there and I'm looking at these kids who have no voice in our society, but who are speaking on stage with Chris bleepity Crutcher.
That's like
about how I'm covered in chills. I'm like listening to them talk and I'm thinking, I don't need to say a word up there. What could I add to this?
Well,
nothing.
It doesn't do anything for you to be the one to say.
No. And to repeat, I had no agenda. This grew organically. The kids who did not have a voice found themselves in literature and in the empowerment of choosing what to read and finding this niche in their world. I didn't choose any of those books. This happened organically. And here I am just enjoying the fruit of it, even though I am on, my job is on the line. I'm sitting back there yes, go. It honestly was such a beautiful moment. And the thing that sticks in my mind is that none of their parents came. Only one. One actually. One girl's mom came. And the other ones, I'm like, you mean to tell me your parents missed this?
Yes.
You are speaking on stage with Chris Crutcher. We got college professors who have driven in from an hour away in this audience who are here to fight for your kids. And your kids are on the stage with this esteemed gentleman. And you miss this. I'm the one taking pictures of them afterward. Where are you at? Mm-hmm. That stuck with me. You don't want to know why their parents weren't there? Because they were afraid to take a side. Their kids are leading the show and they're afraid to take a side in this community. The one woman who sent the email saying that I was teaching soft pornography, she came, but she left in the middle of it because she got offended. So, but she was the only one I recognized.
I'm sure she was deeply missed.
She was deeply missed at the end of that. But it was, anyway, so that was this cool moment that came out of it. And then after that, so I didn't know at the point when Chris Crutcher was there that the superintendent was going to ban all the books. At this point, there's still hope. And that night I felt so hopeful after listening to those kids and listening to Chris Crutcher. Nobody important in the school district came to the talk. I hoped they would. The superintendent, nobody came. The newspaper came. And so they put some cool stuff out there. They painted a pretty nice picture. But anyway, I still felt like there was hope. But a couple of weeks later, I realized that the superintendent had already banned all the books ahead of that meeting. And it was the letterhead. His decision was slid under my door. Nobody even had the courage to hand it to me. Somebody slid it under my door and ran. Knocked, slid it under the door and ran.
Ding dong ditched you.
Ding dong ditched me with a total ban. And his ban was I'm going to ban not just these 6 books, but I'm banning everything from the whole entire department now. From the whole entire department, anything like this that is not on the College Board recommended reading list. I'm disappointed if you try to use it because we don't support this here. And then the FCA guy, because the FCA had preached against me. This was interesting. I forgot to include this.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for those of you not from the Midwest.
Yes. The Fellowship of Christian Athletes, their sponsor at school, actually at their Fields of Faith event on school campus, they snuck somehow. They got kids to steal some of my books, take them to the Fields of Faith event and hold them up. And they were talking at the Fields of Faith event about how they're going to get these books and these teachers out here. These teachers are ruining our youth and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're allowing this? Okay. So long story short, I used to sing church songs with the FCA. I would go down there and play the keyboard with them and lead them in worship because I was a praise team pianist and alto. And that was true. Like, I truly loved that life. And I'm like, guy, you know me. You're what? You are letting people hold up books and preach against me. They got the book club thing at the bottom. Everybody knows that I am like synonymous with the book club. Then after that ban, this is when I knew I needed to resign. So after Chris Crutcher comes in, after that last ban, like all young adult literature is dead in the department now, another book challenge comes in. My librarian calls me and she's like, Risha, we've had another challenge. There's getting ready to be another challenge. It's getting ready to come through. And I'm like, what's
left to challenge?
What is left to challenge? Absolutely. Do you know what they tried to challenge? Chinua Achebe's
Things Fall Apart.
Things Fall Apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And do you know what the premise was of the offense? That the white missionaries in the book are painted in a negative light because the tribal members don't want them there and they don't like the missionaries, and that's offensive.
Sorry.
Imagine.
Wow.
But because the superintendent had already said that anything basically on the college board list was fair game.
He kind of screwed himself.
So they couldn't actually move forward with the paperwork because they were all like cronies with the superintendent.
Wow.
So they couldn't actually do anything about that. But I remember like feeling like, wow, we are just going to read our minds around here because there's no more books.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's left?
Anyway,
what's left to read?
What is left? So that's my short history with censorship. Wow, friends, sorry.
No, this is incredible. So that was the end of that time at that school. I'm taking it as that was.
Yeah, after that last ban, I was like, I got to get out of here. Oh, it gets better. The superintendent said he was going to retire. He'd been, everybody knew he was retiring that year. But then after this whole fiasco with me, he changed his mind. He told everybody, nope, I'm not retiring. I have work here to do. That whole message to me was, he's staying here as long as I'm here. And I hated to make it about myself, but I felt like it was. I was like, I got to go. I've started something here that I'm proud of. These kids that, they're readers for life now. And the kids that were like in that book club and like leaders of that book club, I mean, they've gone on to do wonderful things in the world. But I knew it was time to go. So that's when I left.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gosh. And you went back to teach more English classes.
Let's use this as a transition opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about where you are now. I want to touch on a couple of things. I really just want to talk about your TikTok and how much fun it is so that everybody can understand who it is they're listening to if they've found you through following you through TikTok. So I want to talk about that. I also want to talk a little bit, and you've already been kind of addressing it, but I want to talk about dealing with negativity because that seems to be a theme that is pursuing you through your career, not by your choice, but just by the nature of the world. So why don't you just catch us up a little bit on what you've been up to recently, both in your normal day job and in your social media kind of career, and then just fill us in a little bit.
Well, I loved North Dakota. We moved here right after my book fiasco. I stayed in Kentucky for like another 2 school years. And then we moved up here. My ex at that time took a job up here because truly I thought I would never teach in Kentucky again after I left that county. I thought nobody's going to hire me because at this point it's gone all through the media. I have not spoken. Everybody has made up all kinds of angles. And so suddenly I'm like, I'm not hireable. But whenever he went to North Dakota and I ended up coming up here, the high school I was hired at to teach, the books that were banned in Kentucky were on their required reading list. They taught them. And I was boy, have I landed at the right place. And I'll never forget the school that hired me. After they hired me, I had a talk with one of the women on the hiring committee. And I was like, did y'all Google me? She's like, yeah, we Googled you. Didn't seem like you were doing anything too bad. We couldn't figure it out. But we all decided that if you were some kind of trouble, we could fire you. And I was like, well, that's really a reasonable point. Yeah. So they hired me and I was like, this is a good place to be. So my whole time in Kentucky, when we lived in North Dakota and then back in Kentucky, I wanted to get back to North Dakota. They are good to teachers here. They respect teachers here. Teachers are free. The only reason I'm having so much fun on TikTok right now is because I'm free. They know I'm making TikToks in my class. I don't ever show students, but I'm videoing myself. The faculty meeting after school today, they opened the faculty meeting by playing my TikTok from TikTok.com or whatever to open the faculty meeting. They were like, Miss Allen's gone viral. We're real proud of her.
That's awesome.
My principal came down to have a talk with me after my songs went viral. And in Kentucky, I actually was written up for going viral once. on my duty-free lunch break. I made a funny pro-teacher satire video in my classroom, and they wrote me up for it. And they said, actually, you're not allowed to photo or video yourself in this building or any students in this building ever. And I was like, my kids play basketball here. You're telling me I can't like video my kids? And I was like, I will sign this paper in receipt of receiving it, but I am not accepting this, and I will get my union rep involved. This is my duty-free lunch on my personal cell phone, and my video was pro-teacher. And so anyway, when my principal came down to talk to me after going viral on TikTok, he's just like, we are so proud of you.
And you're like,
we are right. I was like, what? He's like, we're so glad you're here. Don't get famous and leave us.
Yeah, for real. That's the real kick with you.
My principal knows what's up. Good for the principal there.
Well, it's just what I was trying to say about that. I love my principal. Both of them, I would teach in 2 schools, is that in North Dakota, teachers are allowed to exist. Like, we are esteemed. We are trusted. They hire the best and leave them alone up here. And just like the woman who said, well, we figured you didn't really do anything wrong, but if you were trouble, we could fire you. That's the mentality. We don't have to deal with them. We fire them if they're awful.
Yeah,
we'll hire the best and leave them alone. That's how it should be, truly. And so, like, the only reason I am able to truly, like, share the beauty and the happiness of what I'm doing right now with the world is because I teach in a place that supports that.
So how did you switch from English to music ed? Like, what happened in your life that, I mean, I know you've always been into music, obviously, like, that's not a secret about you, but, like, where did that, like, how did that work?
Well, when I went to college, initially, I went on a vocal music scholarship. That's how I went to college. And I was going to be a music teacher. Like, that was my goal, period. But I ended up switching my major, but I had enough classes in college to come out with a minor. Well, you can't use a minor to teach in Kentucky, but in North Dakota you can. So my minor is honors.
Nice.
There. Yeah. Perks of living in a state with low population. Right. I mean, I have my English degree, I have separate from my education degree, and then I have a minor in music and a master's in elementary education. So up here, the way that codes in their system is I can teach a lot of stuff. I didn't realize so I got divorced and I was like, I'm going back to North Dakota. I was happy there. I love teaching there. I can't continue to teach in Kentucky. So I don't want to live in a big city. I could teach in a city. I just don't want to live in a big city. I'm a rural gal and always have been. I just don't like the feeling of a city. But in North Dakota, the cities don't feel like cities because ain't nobody here. So I was like, I'm going back to North Dakota. When I came up here, my only goal was to get back at the high school that I had taught at. I loved the high school that I taught at. And then I realized I could teach music. I looked at my, eligible, like all the courses I'm eligible to teach. And I was like, what? I can teach music here? And there was a music opening elementary. And I thought, why not? I'm 40 years old. I've just gone through a divorce. I've left my home and my family, and I'm up here starting fresh. Like, why not try this thing before I go back to high school that I already know? I already know high school. Why not try something new? And I have found my calling. I'm a singer, songwriter, and a musician anyway. Those are my passion points. And I now am merging with 15 years of experience as a teacher with the thing that I am most passionate in the world about. I'm having a great time. And I'm sure you can see that. I'm just like bubbling over.
So why TikTok? What happened? Because okay, and knowing you, Risha, I would say, I don't know if tech savvy is like the top thing as an adjective for you, Like, you hold your own. But when you started sharing that, I was like, okay, her kids are totally doing this. That's what I figured. I was like, your kids are in your...
You thought the kids posted it?
Well, I mean, you're always active and like sharing stuff about your family. You know what I mean? Like, you're always like active on social media. But I was like, is Risha really TikToking
on
right
Facebook?
Now?
Let's be clear.
Yeah. But I was like, is she TikToking? Like, is this what I'm seeing? Or like, where? People
have been telling me for years, Risha, TikTok was made for you. TikTok was made for you. Share some of your songs. Like, put some of your stuff out there. I wrote songs for my high school students. The one year we did the very best in writing. We were third in the state on our writing scores. I had written a song to help them remember Toolman Argument Organization to Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's the kind of stuff I've always done. But here's why. I tell you exactly what happened. I'll never forget. It was November the 30th. Kids, gather around. My kids do this little cute, I just wrote this thing with them one day. Hello, first grade. I'm glad to see you. And they, one of them repeated it back one day. Then they all wanted to repeat it. And it's just this cute exchange that we have almost every day where they come in and I say, hello.
Is it bad that I know this song off the top of my head?
I know. I'm going through it.
You're like, stop alluding to it and sing it.
I'm like, just give me what I want.
Hello, Miss Allen. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad I'm in your class. It's precious. So I was like, one day we sang that, and it just struck me the beauty of it. And there was a parrot in the room. Actually, I didn't even ask her to. She asked if I wanted to. I propped my phone up against my mason jar on the other side of the room. And I was just going to record it that way because I was like, I want to have this forever. This is precious. And so she's like, do you want me to video it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Probably a better video that way. And all year long that I've been teaching music, Katie has seen it. I would just post it on my Instagram and Facebook story of like these little cute moments, like kids singing along with me, never posting like kids and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm just like living this precious life with these kids. And then my friends have been saying, put it on TikTok, put it on TikTok. And that day I was like, you know what? This is so daggone cute. I think I'm going to put it on TikTok. And it blew up and went viral. And now, it's had like over 4 million views. People just, they love it. They eat it up. So then after that, I was like, what? People want to see my stuff? Weird. I'm used to getting like 3 likes on Facebook, and Katie's all 3 of them. Like,
big fan.
Like Katie like it from her account. Get Chelsea to like it from her account. Get Joy to like it. Oh, everybody likes it.
I have like 3 social media accounts. I'll like it from all of them. Yep. That's fine.
Thank you.
Like.
Thank you. That'll double the numbers. So suddenly like people want to see this, and I'm like, oh, I got all kinds of this. So I just was like screen recording stuff that I had put on Instagram for the longest time, or going back through my camera roll and putting cute things on there that I had already, because I'm just loving my job and just can't believe how adorable it is. So anyway, so now I just film what I do almost every day. And then I just clip it down and share some of the cute moments of some of the great learning moments. And I'm having such a great time. And you know what? I want to make a point about this. I am not doing anything different than what I've always done, which is just hype my kids up and bring the energy to get buy-in for what I'm doing, and to make sure they don't ever leave my class feeling like it wasn't worth their time, or feeling like that it's not for them. I want them to know you don't have to learn to read music to enjoy music. Music is everybody. Everybody likes music. I don't care if you don't like music class, you still like music. And every music you like is created by people who learn from a music class. So music is for everybody. And so what I'm doing now looks really, really precious. What English teachers face is the same thing. It looks dangerous, not precious. So like the thing that I did with the books was the same thing. I'm hyping kids. I'm getting buy-in. I'm getting them not to come into my class and look at it as just one more class to just like blow off and pass, but to actually participate and become a member of something, and then become an intellectual, like empowering them, giving them the tools to empower them, not giving them an agenda, just pure enjoyment of this content and empowering them to go forward. Same thing I'm doing with music. But now I look like Mr. Rogers, and then I looked like I needed to be burned at the stake. Yeah. And I think I want to point that out to say, protect your English teachers, because they're doing the same thing and they're getting none of the glory. They're getting all of the suspicion. Anyway, not to take it to a dour edge, but sometimes I get kind of offended at how much fun I'm having.
Yeah, me too.
Like, sometimes little PTSD.
Yeah, I think the rest of us do also.
Well, we're just having a great time. I would teach English again if I have to. I feel like I cut my teeth professionally on teaching English, but man, I am having so much fun teaching kids music.
So
thank you.
How do the students take the TikTok? Like, they know you're doing it. They know you're viral. Like, is there like, are you like making bets with like what class you're going to post that? Like, how do you handle them?
Honestly, it's a real thing, because I tell you what, this is street smart. This is street cred, not street smart. This is street cred. They're in kindergarten and it's street cred. But one of the parents told me, she said, before bed, I let my kid go to your TikTok and she gets to pick 2 videos to watch before bed. Another one said to me just today, she said, I couldn't get mine up out of the bed today, so I went to your YouTube and we listened to the Wednesday song to get her out of bed. And I'm like, this is so precious. And kids are coming in, they're like, did the Lions, did they respond? How many likes do we have? Like they're really, really empowered by it. And they feel like little celebrities, and it's making it's making music class even more important for them, because, well, it's a performing art and they're performing for the world right now. They know that on my TikTok, their voices can be heard, and people are like, oh, they sound so precious. They sound so good. Or they know they're writing the music that we're singing sometimes. And it really has increased the urgency to learn music, even for kindergartners.
Are you feeling the pressure to keep putting out TikToks now?
No, It's not
Yeah,
pressure.
that's
Here's the
good.
thing. Here's the thing that I have loved about going viral, and I feel very fortunate about. Some people go viral because they make a funny joke, and you can't sustain that. You can't be funny all the time. I can sustain what I'm doing because I do it. This is what I do. All I got to do is prop a video up. It has become a little more time consuming because, now I just leave a video propped up and I, have to like pull
Find the
out some of the
moments.
things that I want to feature.
Sure.
I'm not going to put, everything on there. So it's a little more time consuming, but I don't feel pressure to change anything to create content. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
The content is just what we do.
You don't have to
So,
keep finding ways to stay fresh. Like, you don't have to worry about it because it's just going to happen. Like,
it's going to happen. We sing songs. Kids are cute every day.
So that's easy.
And they're learning new things every day. So yeah, I feel really, really fortunate that there's a lot of people out there who like singing. I mean, music is a performing art. And like, I'm a performer too. Like not in any way of fake performer. Cause I don't even like to sing in front of people unless like I was embarrassed as all get out when they played my song at the faculty today. I wasn't sitting there like, yeah, I was like, oh my God, everybody in this
you
room
were like,
sing at the
please
same
let
time.
it be shorter.
Yeah. But I was proud, but
Yeah.
I was embarrassed at the same time. But in this way, I know it's kind of like these people have bought front row tickets to my show because it's a niche following. And so I'm not afraid to perform on my own even, or to sing a song or something. It's very empowering for me too, because they want to see this. Whereas when I would, put something on a different platform, it's my family or something. They don't all want to see it. These people here have found me because they want to. And that is really cool in the arts. That's really cool that there's 80,000 people now that have come to see my show.
And like,
I'm Lady Gaga of the,
okay, hold on.
Mr. Rogers version. Lady Gaga, Mr. Rogers.
A whole other outfit. I'm just trying to imagine.
Truly it is. I'm just saying, I packed the stadium.
When you first started on TikTok, it was so funny because I was like, I obviously love it because I'm a fan of yours anyways, but it was hilarious because I was like in the comments hyping you up, like all of this stuff. And, because I was like, I know that you have this gift that's worth sharing. And so also I wanted you to go famous on TikTok because I'm like, if somebody nails TikTok, it's going to be Risha, like 100%. And then I realized that I don't have to because you did it yourself. And then I was like, what the hell? What was I doing out here?
I still need you.
But I will say my biggest complaint about your TikTok so far is that the song that you wrote about the things that kids say to you when you don't wear makeup has been one of the best things I've ever listened to. I have played it probably 10 times. Like, I am not kidding. I laugh out loud. And I even commented on it. I was like, why isn't this viral? Like, I need to understand where that happens.
I understand the algorithm a little bit better. So some of these things I can tell you why they're not viral. They'll pick up a lot of views when other videos go viral and bring people to my page. Like, they'll pick up a lot of views. But I've kind of like
you're getting
not cracked the code, but I'm starting to get
that
it.
TikTok
about timing and length.
Like teacher gold, because what that's like. Like the one day you're tired, they're like, "What's wrong? Did your cat die?
Right?
What happened? Like
you change one thing.
Who died?
Yeah,
what died?
And it's like, okay, I just didn't sleep. I don't need.
Are you sick?
Right. And then they just stare at you like, "Are you going to fall over dead? Are you going to like burst into tears? Like
you're fragile now."
And it was so funny to me because elementary kids are the same as high school kids. They say the same stuff.
No filter.
High school kids just
no filter
on
any
at all.
Of
like,
any of those.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They let you have it.
This is actually
But thank you. I'm glad you liked that song.
Oh, fantastic. I wanted to ask you, because you have a unique perspective on this with everything you already told us about with going through banned books. It kind of applies there too, but especially with what you're doing on TikTok now, just like balancing all of that, your career, your actual real life career, and then your sort of social media, what's taking off, how like dealing with negativity. This is kind of funny. We brought it up when we were chatting before we started the show, but we were just talking about like negative feedback on any piece of art, whether like it's our podcast, like people get cranky about it. Negative feedback out in the world, anything involving social media, you're just instantly opening yourself up to allowing people who have never met you to make the most. I sent Kate a tweet earlier from John Green, actually, who was something like, anybody who has like 14 seconds can just type some random into their little white box and ruin your day by making you think about something negative. And it's just like, you don't know this person. They don't know you. They've just come in and they've spent 14 seconds of their life and they've ruined your day. So that kind of mentality, how do you, for us as viewers of your TikTok, and, you know, for Kate as somebody who knows you, it's a very different experience, because we're just like, no, she's awesome. She's so upbeat. She's got so much energy. She's so inspiring. But obviously, we're all real people who deal with real feedback in a very human way. We can't just read the comments like we're reading the comments. We're reading the comments like creators who have been knocked down a peg every time we get a negative comment. So how do you deal in general with negativity that comes your way? And that's not just on social media. It's like, you know, what you face in schools and all of your work too.
I wish I had a concise, beautiful thing to say, but it messed me up for a long time. I dealt with some crippling anxiety for a couple of years after this. I was really, really scared of losing my job. I started to get scared physically at the end of this. And I'll add in that during this, my ex, who we were married then, he has some addiction problems, and there was all kinds of stuff going on in my own home that I didn't feel safe there. 9 times out of 10, I suddenly wasn't safe at school. I didn't feel safe in the community because suddenly there are people popping up everywhere. They know where I live. They're driving by my house. Like, I was really scared for a long time. So I ran. I left. I went to live with my mom when my ex went to live to North Dakota. So I got some space from it then. Then as soon as I spoke about it, I wrote a blog post, and the school district says they're going to sue me. And so then I'm afraid then. And you know, one thing that happened then, and I've learned both things, not to let people who say mean things about you online hurt you, but then also not to let people who don't have the same stakes as you do make you do things and take stands that you're not ready to take. Because one thing I have learned is that when you take that stand, be ready to fall for it. People will not stand with you, and you will lose everything. Be prepared to do it. That was a really hard lesson for me to learn. And so when I took those blog posts and stuff down, then the people who supported me started attacking me and calling me a coward and all this stuff. And I'm like, I am a 27-year-old mom of little kids who cannot afford to lose her job. And I never took this stand for a liberal agenda, and I didn't take a stand for a conservative agenda. I don't have a damn agenda. I wanted kids to be better readers, and both sides are trying to manipulate me to make me post more about it or to make me argue with this one about it. I need to feed my kids. And so there was a point during all of that when I had to say, I cannot listen to either side about what either side wants me to do. I have to just focus on me and what I know to be true, and I have to keep my family safe. And if I need distance from them, then I'm going to go live with my mom. I'm going to live with her basement until I get better. I'm going to go to therapy. I went to therapy. I did EMDR. I went to regular therapy and EMDR, whatever. And then I got a divorce. I got out of a situation that was also keeping me down and making me feel unsafe. So I have let go of a lot of the things that mentally hold me down, thinking that I owe people things. Like that I owe the left, I owe the right, I owe my husband, I owe my school. I don't owe anybody anything. I'm doing what's best for kids every single day. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. And there was a point where I felt like I was somebody's mockingjay, and I'm letting everybody down because I'm not fighting strongly enough for this. I'm not willing to lose everything for this, So I would say learning to trust myself and put myself and my kids first. That was a big part. Therapy, I cannot overrate therapy. If you'll listen to some of these songs that I write for kids, you can tell I've been to therapy. You can tell that I've learned to let go of the past and move forward. And every day is a new day. Let go of the things that haunt you. Look at things ahead. Let go of the things that you think about that constantly keep you feeling like, oh, I failed one time. Remember that one time where I did everything wrong and I got run out of town? Things like that.
The committee
so I
fell
would say
apart.
Staying positive. Remember the time? Remember the committee?
All
Let
of them.
go of the committee.
Move on. I must release the committee from my former life.
The committee is haunting me. I gotta let it go. Remember the time I got kicked out of the literacy committee. Oh gosh, that is the best. But honestly, I feel like people who won't do the work are not going to be able to take such negative experiences and let go of them and find the positive. I will say I've done the work. I've read books on finding strength within myself, like a bunch of self-help books and therapy podcasts. I cannot overrate podcasts, self-help podcasts about positivity. I have done the work. I don't go to school this positive because I'm just superwoman resilient. I'm not. I was in I will never forget. I'm not going to tell you all of these details, but actually, Katie, when I taught with you, that was the lowest point in my life. And I'm so glad that I had you, because I actually was on some medications at that point to try and fight. I mean, my husband had really done some bad stuff and then left and went back to North Dakota, left me there with 3 little kids in Ohio. And we had talked about doing this. Like we were all going to migrate back to North Dakota, but I was alone dealing with heartbreak and stuff going on at work and living in a new place and all this kind of stuff. Plus feeling like my old school district is going to sue me and like all of these kind of things. And I was at a really, really low place. So I'm saying I've been really, really low, and it takes work to get out of that and to be able to turn yourself on the positive. So I would say if you don't have money for therapy, listen to free podcasts. Because they can save you. A lot of those people that make podcasts have read the books and gone to therapy.
Yeah, we're big fans of podcasting all around.
Yeah.
They did all the work, so you don't have to. That's the best part.
Well, they can make you a better person. I mean, I'm a huge fan. Like, I don't know, social media for good is an important thing for me, because I think we're all aware of how bad and how negative it can be, and that's what the majority of media chit chat about social media is about, right? It's just like the negative impacts of social media. But I just think there's so many technologies, and like social media has made it possible too, but just like there are a lot of technologies out there that allow people to work for good, and I'm very interested in amplifying that kind of stuff. So like your TikTok, these podcasts, you know,
I feel like that's where a lot of people are. I feel like we've seen the negativity of social media for so long now. But I think there's a lot of people that are looking to some of these positive sources right now going, let's hype this, you know? And I think that's a good thing to do. Like, that's a good place to be. And I like knowing that, like, my 5th graders who are developing an identity in this world, which I think is so dangerous, because every platform requires a different facet of your humanity. And these kids don't even know how to be themselves yet. And they don't until they're much older. And yet I
still don't know how to be myself.
Platforms.
So I totally,
right?
I feel that. Yep.
And here these kids have to be like, they have to be the Facebook versions of themselves, and then the Instagram versions, and then their spam accounts, and then their second spam accounts, and then their TikTok that their parents may see, but then their crazy TikToks, they got to have that account. And it's like social media schizophrenia that these kids are managing. Anyway, but one of the things that I love is that my TikTok is a wholesome place. And I know that when my kids find me there, that they're going to find inspiration and happiness and positivity. And, you know, they don't know the dark stuff that I've been through. They don't know all of that, but I hope that they will see that this is just another adult in their lives who has chosen to see the happy, you know? So I agree with you, Chelsea, that like social media that is wholesome and for the good, I think it's coming into its own at this time.
Yeah, I love it. I'm all in. 'Cause I don't know, especially when we talk to like our parents' generation, there's just, it's, the default position is to be totally jaded about all of it. And we're all pretty much digital natives. I mean, I grew up, so like my parents were involved in like a software, like they started a software company. My dad started a software company out of college. So like I grew up around computers. I grew up around technology and social media. It was hard for me to watch this thing that I had grown up with as being this cool thing that allowed my family to, you know, become comfortable just like in community and like financially, all this stuff. It was hard to watch that thing become this gross, like I don't know what we have now when we think of social media and like Facebook and the metaverse, and we think of like stolen elections and like crypto scams. And it's just the thing that I knew of, the thing that I knew as the internet growing up was this boundless place of creativity and like sharing with my, you know, like my writing club in high school. We all get online and like Skype each other and just talk about what we were writing and like reading. And just like, that's what I knew as the internet. And to watch it be kind of transformed into some weird, you know, just like byproduct of capitalism was a little bit depressing. But I am finding hope in, like you said, a lot of podcasts are doing this for me. It's just like a lot of really creative spaces, like Discord communities, things like people are taking agency back in a lot of really curious ways. And it's not the ways that are dominating the media conversations about this right now, but I think there are going to be a lot of interesting innovations in the next decade or so around reclaiming these spaces.
I think so too. And I think one thing about reclaiming those spaces is it doesn't have to be the dominant social media force, because niche is where it's at. Like, people are starting to care less about the dominating social media forces, and they're starting to care more about the hashtags that mean something to them. And following those people. And I love that, because part of, I forgot this part, but I think it's important right now. Part of what I have done since I got divorced, which was I got divorced in fall of 2020. And I feel like saying the fall of 2020 is such a rich thing to say, because 2020 was a disaster in a lot of ways.
A very specific point of that year.
Yeah, the fall. Whenever I decided that the grand finale of that dumpster fire of a year was going to be leaving my husband, I was like, I'm going to have to guard myself here, because I've been to dark places before and I don't want to go back. I don't watch the news. I quit watching the news in 2020. I unfollowed every single news source that I followed, every single one. I unfollowed any humans that were talking about anything that I felt was politicized, anything that I felt like was polarizing, even people that I respect and whose opinions I may agree with. I unfollowed them. I don't want to see it. I don't want that poison in my mind. I want to see people's dogs. I want to see cute cat videos. I want to see people's kids on the first day of school. I want to see your Christmas trees. Like, I want to see funny jokes. The other things, I don't need a constant flood of toxic information that is in a lot of ways designed to keep me fearful.
Yeah.
I have been the victim of people's fear before, and I have also been afraid enough before that I have hurt others with my words.
I want to contribute to the flip side of that situation, because I'm somebody who has not unfollowed. Like, I do the filtering still on the signal to noise, and because I can just imagine somebody going in their head, well, you shouldn't do that. You should like invite all these other perspectives or whatever. But I can tell you from experience that it's not actually helping to see it. It's not making anything any better. I don't feel better that I still get to see the doom.
We believe what we believe.
So, like,
we're going to vote how we're going to vote. Like,
people can argue the philosophical merits of, like, hearing things outside of your bubble or whatever. But I gotta tell you, especially during this pandemic time, it has not actually made me feel better. If the goal is self-care, if the goal is keeping a healthy, mental state about what's going on in the world right now, if that's the goal, then a well-rounded palette of social media crap flowing at you all the time, it doesn't actually help. It's not gonna do it.
And there are people, I think you have to know yourself too. There are people who can exist in a peaceful place and still be consuming from the outlets that they typically do. It was too much for me. Leaving my job, there was a little bit of trauma when I left Kentucky again. It was actually really traumatic, and I was afraid once again. People came after me once again. This time it wasn't over books. And it was a little bit crazy, and I was actually more afraid because it was right before the uprising in January, and I knew these people wanted blood, and for some reason they chose me. And I left Kentucky in a hurry. I left Kentucky 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Because I was afraid of some people who had gotten a hold of something I had said on social media.
Yeah,
that was
that's a bad time.
Screenshotted it, put it in some type of group where people were just hungry for blood. And what I said wasn't even, it shouldn't have even been inflammatory, but it was surely taken as inflammatory. And then people put it in other groups, and all of a sudden I go viral in this niche community, and they're out for blood again. And so for me, disengaging from all social media was very important. Very important. It may not be for other people, but for me, like, I needed to unplug from everything, start over. I came to North Dakota, started over fresh. I believe the things that I believe, and I don't need outlets that reinforce my beliefs. I don't need my ego stoked. Not saying that's the only reason people listen to that. I'm saying at this time, I don't need to feel as right as I know I am. I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm right. Like, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm right about the things I'm right about, or else I wouldn't think them. And so I've just disengaged from everything to save myself. And it has been a blessing, because those things, they just don't consume me. They just don't. And so I would say that's a starting point. Even if somebody is willing to unplug from a few of them, don't let yourself be constantly surrounded by the things that keep you fearful, or, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That keep you maybe mistrusting of others and stuff.
For sure.
So that has helped me, for sure.
I'm inspired. I needed this conversation, apparently. Sheesh.
I'm glad to hear it. I swear I feel like I have rambled this whole time. I really do feel like if I have, I am sorry.
None of this would I describe as rambling. Nothing at all.
Okay.
No. Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me?
I don't know how to be a guest on a podcast, so I'm learning too. We're all learning.
We don't technically know how to have guests on our podcast because you're the first, but I'm loving this so far. So,
well, I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast that was 3 hours long with Jewel, and I hung in there. So maybe you have listeners that'll hang in.
Random. Okay. Well, thank you so much for really everything. I feel like we've gotten so many nuggets of wisdom from so many different angles, and I feel like I need to reevaluate my life. Also, there's a lot to.
I feel really good about
so much pressure.
So I never listened to our own episodes again because it stresses me out too much to hear my own voice. But
well, I overpowered everybody on this one, so you won't have to.
No. I was about to say I'm going to make an exception for this because this has been wonderful and we really appreciate it. We have a couple of things we always do on our pod, and I guess you'll have an opportunity for a little bit of trivia here. But this question's pretty hard. I wouldn't know the answer to this, but we're going to go ahead and do our fill in the blank real quick, and then we're going to talk about what we learned. So while we do this question, think about what you learned in the past couple of weeks. Kate and I always share what we learned on the pod, just because we're all about that education business. So think about that, and we'll ask you. But in the meantime, we're going to do the fill in the blank question. So I will go ahead and do the last episode's fill in the blank. We already asked this one. So here's last episode's question. Episode 49, that was last episode, was released on January 6th, 2022, which was the anniversary of Maria Montessori opening her first school. In what year did the first Montessori school open? Any guess? Risha?
Did you
read the guess? We get to put you on the spot.
Well, I can tell you what the answer probably is, but I did not know it before this podcast.
What is the answer?
I also 1907.
Yes, that's the answer. 1907. Wow, how did you know that?
Oh my goodness.
Well, because my grandma was born in 1908, and when you take away one, I'm just kidding. It's in the show notes.
It's cool though.
She was a big fan of Maria Montessori. And
Maria Montessori, your grandmother.
Well, I just learned something new because I didn't know that that like her surname was Montessori. I thought that was something like religious.
I mean, it sounds like it could be. To be fair,
I truly thought that was like some type of Catholic primary.
The
school.
Italians, they all blend it all together, so that's not.
They did. So wow,
that's fair. Yeah, so 1907 was when the first Montessori school opened, and we mentioned this last week, but we covered Montessori schools in episode 14, way back when we were a wee baby podcast. We talk about Montessori schools. That was way back in the day. That was a fun episode, actually. We were still probably trying to figure out a lot about how we wanted to sound as podcast makers at that time. Now, this is our 50th episode, so we've learned a lot.
Yay!
Yeah, we wanted to have you on for a special number. So
that's a special number indeed.
Yeah. So that was it. That was 1907 was last week's fill in the blank answer.
Okay.
The anniversary of the opening of the first Montessori school. So this episode's question, Kate, would you like to ask this one?
So this episode's question, short and sweet. What was the first book ever banned? Hint, it was banned in 1637 because it off the Puritans. So.
Oh, okay. So like banned in the U.S. First United States banned book?
Yeah.
Or just
in
like
the US.
Did we
weren't really the United
States. US
States
didn't exist.
Yeah, I was gonna say also probably the concept of banning books didn't exist.
They were here.
Yeah.
Right, because there weren't very many books. This was like
they
were starting to come into circulation.
For real.
When I Googled it, this was the answer.
we pioneered banning books in addition to books.
Truly. Thank you, Puritans.
I
mean, they were here at that time, so they probably like kicked somebody out of their colony and said, take that manuscript with
by the way.
I think you're giving clues to this.
Get off our committee.
You didn't know this, but the first committee to say no thank you to a book.
Literacy committee number 1.
The first literacy committee banned this book.
37.
Yeah. This book was banned by the first cranky literacy committee in 1637. Right.
And they didn't want Risha in their committee either.
They didn't. These are my flippin' ancestors, and they said.
Okay, so are we ready to learn about what we all learned this week? Are we ready to share?
Yeah, I'll share.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
who wants to? You want to go first, Kate?
I can go first. So
What
Risha
did you
has a
learn in the
moment.
last week or so?
I'm just going to plug something really quickly. I'm listening to a new book called Eleanor and Hick by Susan Quinn, and it's about Eleanor Roosevelt and her relationship with her name was Lorena Hickok, and she was a journalist at the time, and it was about like their love affair basically because it was after FDR had cheated on Eleanor like for the whatever time. It's so good. It's
Jerk.
yeah, like not like I already didn't love Eleanor, but like it's great writing. So Susan Quinn's book. But the most interesting thing for me was that a lot of it talks about how Eleanor's father died of alcoholism when she was pretty young, and her brother was an alcoholic. And so she was like super active during Prohibition because she was so anti alcohol. And I didn't know that. Plus, she's also like Teddy Roosevelt's niece. So, like, I knew she would be related somewhere. I actually expected
Okay.
FDR to be Teddy Roosevelt's nephew, but they're like fifth cousins, so they're all related. Anyways, great book.
Yeah,
Ah,
you were reading
I didn't know.
the description of this book to me, and I was just like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Like, I had just no clue. Like, this is so far from removed from whatever like 10th grade history version of the Roosevelts that we get. I don't know if that's the right grade. I can't remember, but like,
That's probably
it
about
just
right.
so yeah, whatever version of whatever grade of history that was, we just did not talk about these people as real humans, first of all, but just like so
Mhm.
interesting. She was reading me basically the dust jacket version of what this book was about because we were in the car and she was looking at audiobooks, and I was just like, that's fascinating. Like, I want to know about that, but I would have wanted to know about that as a kid growing up. I just didn't really.
Yeah, they wrote like thousands of letters back
Yeah.
and forth.
Well, I didn't read nonfiction ever, but this
That
is
is
just
so
fascinating.
cool.
Yeah, but Hick, the woman she was in love with or had the relationship with, once Eleanor died, she was entrusted with all the letters. And then Hick had the letters, and when she got sick, she donated them to the FDR library, or to the Roosevelt's library, obviously. And she made a stipulation that they
Wow.
couldn't be read for 10 years after her death. So it was after Hick's death 10 years later that people have started going through them.
Wow.
And so there's been a couple
That
books
is
written about it.
so
It's really
fascinating.
interesting. And the letters, if
Okay,
you go there, if you
I'm
go to
gonna
Hyde
read that
Park, yeah,
book.
if you go to Hyde Park, you can read the letters yourself. It's very interesting. So
How
it's so
cool. That
and
is
the
super, super
I'm listening to
cool.
the audiobook because that's what I do on my drive, but the woman who reads it is incredible. It's really good.
That's cool.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go next because Risha, I want to save you for last on this
Okay.
magnificent week of our first guest. So what I learned this week, and I learned this from another podcast that I'm sure I've talked about on this show before. It's 20,000 Hertz. It's a podcast about sound production, music, sound effects, Foley, all kinds of stuff. It's about sound, and it's so good. I love it so much. Great podcast. But anyway, what I learned, they were doing their kind of year end. They take a year end podcast every year where they do a kind of game show type format because they play this game on the podcast every week on their podcast where they have a mystery sound and people try to guess what the sound is. So they were doing like a year review worth of that kind of thing. And on this episode that I was listening to just a couple days ago, they played a sound effect that I actually knew when they first played it on the pod on their original episode where that aired, where that was like the mystery sound or whatever. It's like this weird kind of grumbly growl sound that sounds like it's kind of, from like an old record player or something, but it's what they played on the show and they were trying to get people to guess was the sound of the abominable snow monster from Rudolph. So the Bumble from Rudolph, as he falls off the cliff, he kind of just like growl screams or whatever. So that was the sound they played. But what I learned was that sound is actually a repurposed sample in the sample library of the production company, and it's the same sound that is King Kong's growl. So the Bumble, the abominable snow monster, that's actually King Kong. Same sound effect. And then
Well, that's crazy.
Yes, it's very cool, very cool. And then the same episode, they also covered the fact that the woman who voiced the lady inside of the crystal ball in the Haunted Mansion ride, it was Disneyland in the pod, and they were talking. It's also the same at Disney World. The woman who voiced the creepy lady in the crystal ball and a Haunted Mansion ride is the same as the original voice of Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty.
Really?
So, yep. now you know.
Who knew?
Yeah. Random factoids that nobody on Earth really needs snow, but now we know. That's what I learned. So
Now you know.
now you know.
I'm going to file that away. And
Keep that.
someday that's going to come up in conversation.
King Kong and the Bumble are distant cousins. And
Maleficent.
Yeah, I'm going to get some street cred from
You're
that
gonna have
at some point.
some party facts to share next time we're all allowed
party
to
facts are my
gather in
favorite.
person. All right. So what is the thing that you learned, Risha? What did you learn this last couple of weeks?
To preface what I learned.
We need a preface here.
Yeah.
Sure.
I want to like circle back to the fact that I don't watch the news anymore.
Totally fair.
I watch TikToks.
We've learned a lot.
And
a lot of what we've learned is from TikTok.
Okay.
So don't worry.
I follow this hysterical kid who gives animal facts in a very funny version. I feel like he is following in the footsteps of Snoop Dogg's.
Oh,
You know how Snoop Dogg does like the voiceovers and like funny stuff for animals? Well, this kid does that, but like with an educational bend. And what I learned is that alpha seals.
I'm waiting for how this is going to be phrased.
I know. I'm just like, because so we already, just for listeners, we got a little bit of a warning of what, like a preview of what this was going to be. So I'm just waiting to hear how you're going to phrase it.
So I warned Risha via text. I was like, just so you know. And she goes like this and then says it. And I was like, yep, that'll do. So I'm not entirely sure how you're going to work this one, but I'm excited.
Well, you know, I got to make sure that I present this in the classiest way possible. It's actually living in my head rent free since I learned it, which is why I'm going to share it. I hope that this is a purge.
It's not going away that easily. So.
And I would never think about it again. I learned, first of all, I was upset with killer whales because they're mean. And
Wait. You said
because they're mean.
You said you're upset with killer whales because they're mean.
Basically, all week I've been trying to figure out how I could speak to the manager of killer whales.
so you called SeaWorld.
Yes, I have recently seen videos of them using their tails to be very mean and like flip seals out of the water and kill them and chase them around and kill them and kill stingrays and stuff for no reason. So I was really mad at killer whales.
The reason is that they're killer whales. I think that's the reason.
I think that, I thought that was a misnomer after watching Free Willy. I thought
Free Willy poisoned us. Free Willy is poison.
Free Willy is propaganda. I thought after Free
Katie has something to say. One moment. I raised my hand.
Take it.
Can I just say, wait, was that the movie that at the end it was like the Michael Jackson song?
Yes.
Hold me like the river of Jordan. That's the one, right?
That's the one.
Okay, go ahead now.
I have had a grudge on whoever named killer whales for a while because I was like, that's an unfair name and it's making people think that they're mean. And then I saw videos recently of them being mean and torturing seals and stingrays. Well, then, okay, the saga continued. And this week I learned that seals are actually terrible. And so now I'm going back and I'm thinking maybe killer whales are giving them what they deserve. And I'm actually in a bit of a moral crisis about it.
Okay.
Who is the victim here? The freaking animal kingdom. Everybody's a victim in the animal kingdom, but
I will say that I think that marine biology is one of like the 4 career options that you think you have when you're in elementary school for whatever reason.
Oh, for sure.
And that it's a little misleading because a lot of marine biology is dealing with nasty animals like killer whales. So, okay, so why have you turned your back on seals exactly?
I'm going to tell you.
Please tell me.
I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to apologize in advance, and I'm going to blame it on the TikToker who put this out. Apparently, male seals that are alpha seals do all the mating, which leaves very little mating to be done by the beta male seals, who take out their frustrations on penguins.
No.
There's a video There's ample video evidence.
There are receipts
to support this. I will never be okay again after watching a seal be so bad to penguins. And then they might let them go afterward, or they might rip them to shreds afterwards because they feel bad about themselves for what they've done.
A sexual partner and a snack all in one.
Yes, like a black widow, except for I'm pretty sure the other spider was consenting and the penguins did not.
Oh, no.
And so these terrible seals take advantage of the penguins, and maybe the penguins get to go afterward, but maybe they get ripped to shreds. So now I am circling back to my feelings on the killer whale. And I'm like, if you're punting boy seals, I'm okay with it. Because chances are they're terrible.
I have a very specific request.
There's a lot going on here.
I cannot. I think we probably should have let Risha go first. I'm not sure that this was the ending that we hoped for.
No, this is the magnificent
We're going to get a phone call from PETA. They're going to be like, you're disgracing the killer whales.
It's just honestly, nature, man. Like, what are we supposed to do about it?
We can't do anything about it. I'm just deciding whether or not I should hold a grudge.
Yeah.
I can't stop myself from having real feelings about
the orcas deserve it.
These animals.
Not the orcas. The seals. I'm not mad. I'm less mad at the orcas. Here's what's going to frustrate me the most is, like, the 10th TikTok tonight is going to be that. Like, I'm going to get some weird penguin seal stuff pop up.
Oh, yeah, oh, for sure.
Bang wang porn.
For sure.
I'm so upset. Bring back the orcas. Just send them the clowns. I don't care.
I have worked myself up into a cough. I've got tuberculosis.
We made you laugh, and now you have COVID. Congratulations.
It's not COVID. I'm holding a grudge against marine life.
Marine life. I had a student today.
It's not COVID. It's my grudge against marine life. Don't worry.
Another t-shirt.
I had a student today ask me for help.
I don't support your witchcraft.
That one I did like. But this just one last circle for marine life and how we all thought that was one of 4 options. I did have a student today who asked me for help on their cephalopod assignment. But the way that they were saying it was yeah, idiot, my cephalopod. Can you help me? And I was like, I just stood there and I was like, I looked at another teacher and I was like, is that an octopus? That was the best I could do. All I could think of was an octopus. And the student was like, how stupid of you. Duh, octopus.
The stupid is probably the student. The student is probably
I'll
get someone else to help me. The stupid.
But honestly, it was one of those moments.
Katie, that's rich.
Why do we just assume that the English teacher can just tag in, handle the cephalopod question? I appreciate the honesty.
Right. Well, that you would just know marine jargon.
Right. And so,
yeah,
I'm actually more shocked that this much marine life has come up to me today.
You know what? Honestly, maybe that's because you missed your calling.
This was my moment.
Maybe the universe is like, Katie.
I could have been
Katie, get it together. I thought music is my calling.
This is my chance. And then
this is your chance. You could be Steve
Irwin. The next
Irwin.
scene is me doing the Michael Jackson theme song to SeaWorld. And then I die because I get eaten by the killer whale. Okay. My question, the thing I need to know before I can come to an informed decision is if the killer whale, if he is discretionary, is that the word? Yeah.
No. I want to know if he's discerning. I want to know, is the killer whale discerning who he wants to pick on? Because whales are smart. So now I just need to know that. Did that stingray that he tore apart do something wrong? Did that seal that he punted out of the sky and then went and caught him like a ball and then punted him again and then
is he targeting the seals? That's the question.
Is the killer whale actually like a superhero and getting rid of all the bad guys undercover?
Is he a superhero or is he just bigoted against seals? It's really cool.
Right. Which one is he? Is he saving? Is he giving them what they deserve?
Is he just the apex predator and he just eats what he wants?
See, yeah, this is the problem.
Maybe they don't eat it; they leave it to die.
But we can't. I don't feel like we can fairly evaluate this question because we're the ultimate apex predators, right? So, you present any animal mashup, and we're like, well, this one or this one,
right?
We're always the apex, so we're always going to come at it from the apex angle.
I am not Apex over at Killer
We're not
Whale.
Apex in the ocean.
What ocean are you in? I am not Apex. I'm the seal.
I'm not Apex in the ocean. And I will also say, whales are so smart, right? Wouldn't they be like the smartest in the
There's
ocean?
a Star Trek movie where they have to go back in time
No.
to rescue the whales in order to save the universe, and I'm just gonna throw that out there that whales
Oh.
are smarter than all of us. Oh, you don't know this about me, but
Risha's like, my committee's calling. I must go.
It's me. I'm Sheldon. I'm here to ask your committee
My one
to take
committee.
consideration for my science.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God. Invite me to your committee so
You're
that
in.
you can kick me
Will
off.
you please chair my
Thank
committee
you.
about scientific texts on the literature
Yes.
club?
Yes. And when I pose you with the information that is very clearly alarming that we have to figure out about seals and whales, you'll kick me off the committee then. I just know it.
when it's important for you to be on the committee, that's when you'll be kicked off the committee.
As soon as we have an
I feel like
answer.
As soon as anything matters, that's when
You're
you'll be kicked off the committee.
You're gone. You're out of here.
Okay.
Oh my God.
All right.
Okay.
It's hysterical.
Final segment, and then we will wrap up. The very final segment, we can say goodbye. But like, what are your just kind of random, various, etc. and recommendations and anything? Kate and I usually share like what we've been watching over the past couple weeks, or like what we want people to, what we want to share with people because it's nice, because it's fun. We'll go first.
Yeah, you go first.
We have watched a couple of things recently. We watched this movie, Ron's Gone Wrong. Really cute Disney movie about a kid with a kind of like Android type thing, and like the Android, he gets all screwed up and he can't download all of the parameters that the other kids' Androids have, and he becomes a quirky little robot who's kind of a nerd, and it's so cute. I don't even know how to explain it. It's so cute.
Sounds
So
super
worth
cute.
watching if you got younger kids, especially ones who are worried about like social media and influence and popularity and stuff. Ron's Gone Wrong, nerd movie for the rest of us. So cute. We watched Hidden Figures this week, which is not a new thing, and I should have seen it years and years ago because it's right up my alley. It's about NASA and computers and just freaking amazing. The new Boba Fett episode, just that whole series, if you're into Star Wars, very good, very worth watching. And then the new season of Queer Eye, we binged it, all of it. It's done. We watched it all. That's it. That's my update. I shared all of my updates. Kate, do you have anything else you want to plug?
No, I think just no. That's it.
That was it. I stole all your
That's
thunder.
everything.
Okay. All right.
Honestly,
Risha.
I'm really going through it
It's
about the
Risha's turn.
orca thing.
Oh, you're still stuck on the
Well,
killer whales.
I don't really have I'm so, obviously I want to recommend that one TikToker because his wildlife videos are hysterical, but they're also like, I think they're accurate.
Do you
I
know
don't
what his
have,
handle is? Because we'll plug it in the show
I'm gonna
notes.
find him. DIAYE. I could type this in our notes.
DIAYE. I see it.
_97.
Yep, I see him. All right.
Okay, so I follow this guy and he's just hysterical with his facts. He's so witty and punny, so I really enjoy watching him. I don't watch TV, so I don't have any shows or anything to recommend. I'm reading the book Dune right now, and it's worth my time.
Dune. Have you? Okay, so you're gonna have to
Mhm.
watch the new movie.
After I read it,
Yep.
I want to.
I've read Dune.
So
and
I'm,
I've
like,
only
really
read
loving that.
just Dune. I haven't read any of the other Dune
Okay.
books, so like that's the only one I've read. But I really liked Dune, and I thought it was interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
worth checking out. Very good,
Yeah.
very good. Dune, interesting.
Yeah, I'm reading that. So I would recommend that. I would recommend that TikToker. I would recommend the Quaver music program that I use at school. It's amazing. So any music teachers listening, it's called Quaver, and it is amazing.
Quaver. What is that exactly?
Quaver. It's a curriculum. It's a full service curriculum that is digital. I mean, like, you can just teach from it every day, all the resources you need, all of the interactive things that the kids can use. You can like pick notes up and put them up on the clefs, and it's really awesome. Lots of fun songs, and I feel like for a first year music teacher, it's helping me understand pacing. Like, because I know music, but I don't know what kids should be able to do with
That would be
music
very
at certain
hard,
times.
I think.
Yes. Well, absolutely, because once you know music, as you know, like, you forget how you learned it. you just know it, kind of like reading. So until you teach people to read for a long time, you're not really comfortable with the process. And so this program has been amazing with help. And I've been like blown away with what kids can learn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just loving following that program. So I do a lot of this stuff that I actually view is like videos and stuff on Quaver to prep for the next day. That's where a lot of my time is going. And it's actually a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot about some of the other things about music I didn't know.
Very cool. Any final thoughts, Kate? Any final thoughts for you?
I just want to thank Risha for being on here. I'm maybe gonna cry. I don't know who I am anymore.
I was crying already.
Well, no, but like for me in my first year, I couldn't have done it without Risha. I felt so lucky to get to work with you, like to learn from you, to like be a student of you. Like you are truly one of my favorite people on this earth. You know, I would do anything for you. I just feel so lucky to be in your orbit. And I'm so thankful that you came on here with us and to share any of your life with me or us or anything. So thank you for being on here. Thank you for being you.
I don't want to cry.
Thank you for seriously, like when I think of teachers, you're the cream of the crop. You're the top of the top. Like I truly, there's no one better. So I want you successful on TikTok. I want you happy with whatever it is. I'm really happy and proud, and I just love you. I'm just so thankful that I got you for that year.
I love you too. I'm so thankful for that year. I'm so thankful for you. God, we had a great time that year. Too much fun. We learned a lot together, and it was just such a fun existence that year. Like I'm so thankful that I had that year with you.
It's great. How do our people find you? Where do they go?
Yes.
Okay. You can find me on TikTok. That's probably the best place to find me at the moment. I'm most active there at Rish Dish Fish. And
no regrets.
You know, I have no regrets. And at Instagram, I'm Risha L. Allen. My Instagram is public, so you can find me on both of those platforms. Thank you so much for inviting me on, guys. I can't wait to share this with others, and I feel honored.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for giving us so much of yourself. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Woo! You guys are awesome. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Listeners, thanks for supporting 16 to 1.
We're trying to grow our audience, so please check us out at 16to1.com, all spelled out, and tell your friends about the show.
On our website, you can find links to follow us on social media, an archive of all our old episodes, and a contact form where you can get in touch.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next show.
That was also, Risha, do you remember how much brie we ate that year?